Universal has done something that Disney could only dream of, making a live-action adaptation of a beloved movie and absolutely nailing it. 2025's How to Train Your Dragon is a massive hit, with hardcore fans and newbies to the series loving it in equal measure. You can be sure we'll see a sequel in the near future, but if you just can't wait, we've still got the rest of the animated movies, plus the Netflix series, plus all sorts of auxiliary material. And today we're making sure that you have the most complete overview of everything How to Train Your Dragon. Welcome back to Channel Frederator. It's time for a How to Train Your Dragon compilation. We'll kick things off with a complete timeline of the series, starting with Hiccup's fateful friendship, and taking us all the way to Finding Fury and beyond.
This is Berk, or rather, a video on the history of Berk. You see, other timeline videos talk about gems, or benders, maybe toys, but this one, we're talking about dragons. That's right, today here on Channel Frederator we'll be taking a look throughout the history of all things Berk, as well as the fire-breathing pests turned pets that inhabit it. We'll be covering the 3 feature-length films, the long-running TV series, and even the shorts that went straight to DVD. We won't, however, be including the School of Dragons video game, or any other video games that are set in the How to Train Your Dragon universe, or as it's written in the script here, the universe, because it's just written as all the letters, because that's a lot easier to type. And yes, that means in this timeline, Hiccup hasn't canonically met Shrek while go-karting, which I know is tragic, but it can still be true in our hearts. Also, given that the relationship between Hiccup and Toothless is the catalyst of the whole series, we'll be using that as our benchmark, so everything before their first encounter is BF, before friendship, and afterwards, AF, after friendship. Now, with all of that in mind, let's dive into this with the same enthusiasm that Hiccup dive bombs off of Toothless at the beginning of the second movie. The founding of Berk, 300 BF. A group of settlers arrive on the Isle of Berk, a small, cold island just 12 days north of Hopeless and a few degrees south of freezing to death. Those are both real places, by the way. They are my current position in life and the bus stop outside my house in the middle of winter, respectively. The island is located on the Meridian of Misery in the Barbaric Archipelago, a series of islands between the Greenland and Norwegian seas. During the settlers' journeys across the seas, they create several myths and legends about dragons, the creatures that plague their everyday lives. One of the most notable legends is that of the Hidden World, a forbidden land at the edge of the world where it's said that all the dragons once came from. This legend gets passed down through the ages by the newly formed Hairy Hooligan tribe, the Vikings that settle on Berk. Hamish I is the first chieftain of the Hooligans. Naturally, I mean, it's in his name. He's been described as the most successful leader in the history of Berk and accumulates a vast wealth of treasure throughout his life. Far off from Berk lies a dragon's nest hidden behind a perpetual wall of mist. A particularly vicious red death dragon instills fear in all dragons who live there. This beast forces the weaker dragons to give up a bunch of their food if they don't want to get killed, so the dragons become desperate to meet their lord's demands, so they begin attacking any and all nearby islands for livestock, including Berk. This kicks off the long-running war between the dragons and the hooligans of Berk. With all the dragons terrorizing the archipelago, dragon hunting becomes a necessary pastime. A prominent tribe of dragon hunters, simply known as the Dragon Hunters, use a spyglass-like device called the Dragon Eye. It's passed down through the tribe for centuries, and it uses a dragon's flame to give information about locations or dragons. Eventually, the Dragon Eye gets abandoned in the massive dragon hunter ship, the Reaper, in the ship graveyard. No one knows why the ship and eye were abandoned, but with all of the burn marks and bones inside, and the fact that it's in a place called the ship graveyard, you don't need to be a detective to figure out what happened. Around this time, a separate sect of dragon hunters settle on Dramillion Island. One member, a man named Ingar Ingerman, trains dragons of the Dramillion family to replicate any type of dragon fire. Using this new method, which he dubs the Ingerman method, he revolutionizes dragon hunting and creates a long-standing following called the Loyal Order of Ingerman. On the opposite side of the coin, there's a tribe on the island of Calderaki known as the Defenders of the Wing. Instead of hunting dragons, the tribe worships them and even lives in harmony with them, a way of thinking that's way ahead of its time. The rule of Hamish II, 240 BF. After the death of Hamish I, his son, Hamish II, becomes the new chief of Berk. Since he's a lot smaller than his dad, people call him a Hiccup. Wonder if that's gonna play into anything later. When Hamish II inherits his father's wealth, he decides to leave most of the treasure behind for the next Hiccup, but he doesn't make it easy. He creates a treasure map along with a key comprised of 3 parts and hides his fortune behind an elaborate treasure hunt. It's unknown exactly how Hamish II passes away, but it's said that he only left the Isle of Berk once in his entire life and ends up crashing his ship in the ship graveyard. Again, you don't need to be a detective. Even though Hamish II devises this whole treasure hunt, he gets some help from Bork the Bold, the author of the very first Dragon Manual and the great-great-great-grandfather of Gobber the Belch. Initially known as Bork the Very, Very Unfortunate, he tries out numerous professions throughout his life, but the dragons always sabotaged him in some way. He puts his extensive experience with dragons to good use when writing the Book of Dragons. He even develops the dragon class system, placing each species of dragon into one of 7 classes: Stoker, Boulder, Tracker, Sharp, Tidal, Mystery, and Strike. As if that wasn't enough, Bork also discovers the island of Deep Dark, the ancestral home of the Gronkles, a species of Boulder-class dragons. To celebrate his incredible contributions to Viking society, Bork holds an annual week-long festival called Bork Week. The Rise of Stoic the Vast, 45 BF. After 2 centuries of dragons and Vikings fighting to the death over Bork, a Viking chief and chieftess give birth to a hot-headed and brash Viking known as Stoic. During his childhood, Stoic becomes good friends with the descendant of Bork the Bold, Gobber the Belch. The two are always searching the island for the hidden treasure, but ultimately fail since, they're not the hiccups that Hamish II left it for. Stoic would also hear stories from his grandfather about a tribe known as the Berserkers. They chain down strike-class dragons called Skrills and use their lightning to attack their enemies. Stoic becomes very familiar with the Berserkers later in life. Gobber has a particularly interesting childhood. One summer while vacationing with his parents, he stops in an icy cave for a bathroom break. When he looks at the walls, he can't believe his eyes. Frozen Vikings everywhere. He sees a treasure chest in one of their hands and takes it for himself. Then, suddenly, a massive armored dragon known as the Bone Napper chases him out of the cave, chilling Gobber to his bones. After surviving that fun little vacation, Gobber lives amongst the people of Chilblain for a short spell, breaking the heart of the chief's daughter and playing the panpipes in a band. He dearly loves his pet yak named Pepe until his family cooks it up and eats it during their Snoggletog feast. I myself have never lost a beloved yak, but this might explain why Gobber is so eccentric later in life. Love, Loss, and Birth, 20 BF. Aside from Gobber, Stoic's also very good friends with a man named Alvin. One night during a particularly nasty dragon raid, Stoic and Alvin encounter a monstrous nightmare, the deadliest species of Stoker-class dragon. The two get into a heated argument over how they should handle fighting the beast and evacuating citizens. Alvin defies Stoic's direct orders and acts on his own, resulting in several casualties for the townsfolk. Presumably, this is when Gobber loses his left hand and right leg. From that point on, things are never the same between Stoic and Alvin. Once he's chief, Stoic banishes Alvin from Berk, forcing him to live out the rest of his days on Outcast Island. This action almost caused Stoic to be named Stoic the Vindictive, but thanks to his girth, he earns the moniker Stoic the Vast. With his missing limbs, Gobber can't participate in the war against dragons anymore, so he becomes the village smithy and provides the other Vikings with weapons to help in their endless battles. One day, out of nowhere, Oswald the Antagonistic and the Berserker tribe invaded Berk to take it for their own. During the battle, Stoic fights alongside a woman named Valka. After winning the battle, the two share a dance and sing For the Dancing and the Dreaming, a song that would represent their new love for years to come. Eventually, the hooligans and the berserkers would come to an understanding and even become allies in the coming years. Oswald the Antagonistic has a change of heart and becomes known as Oswald the Agreeable. Stoic even gives Oswald's newborn daughter a horn. Stoic and Valka eventually have a son, but he's born prematurely, so they name him Hiccup. During a dragon attack, a Stormcutter dragon breaks into their house. Stoic rushes to protect his son, but he's unable to save Valka and believes that she gets eaten by the dragon. Unbeknownst to him, the dragon actually whisks her away to a mountain den, bonding with her and showing her the wonders of the dragon world. Stoic raises Hiccup alone, becoming very overprotective of him and causing a strain on their relationship due to his high expectations. Stoic goes out to search for Valka against the wishes of the Berk Council, but he's never successful. Still, he never truly moves on from her. Later on, Stoic attends a meeting with the other Viking chieftains of the barbaric archipelago to discuss how to proceed in their war on the dragons. Suddenly, a man wearing dragon armor enters the room, offering a solution to end the war. His name is Drago Bloodfist, and if all the chieftains bow down and pledge their loyalty to him, he promises to usher in peace and end the war. They all take it as a joke and laugh him out of the room. Moments later, Drago returns with 2 armored dragons, crashes through the roof, and burns the entire hall to the ground, killing all of the chieftains except for Stoic. In his last moments of consciousness, Stoic sees Drago and another man, Krogan, escape on the back of one of the dragons. The Fallen Night Fury, 1 BF. Despite the continued dragon raids, things are relatively calm on Berk. Stoic has become the perfect leader, with his son Hiccup as seen as more of a, well, hiccup. Sort of a mistake. since he's smaller and incompetent. Despite wanting to help out in the war effort, Hiccup is tasked with being Gobber's apprentice instead. One night during a particularly heated dragon raid, Hiccup manages to shoot an elusive Night Fury dragon out of the sky. Too bad that also allows the dragons to make off with most of the village's livestock. This causes further strain on Hiccup's relationship with his father, leaving Stoic to clean up the wreckage of the village. That day, Hiccup goes to find the Night Fury he shot out of the sky and finds him still very much alive, but tangled in the ropes of the bola-type projectile that Hiccup fired at him. To prove that he's a worthy Viking, Hiccup goes in for the kill, but he sees the fear in the dragon's eyes. He hesitates and sets the beast free instead. The dragon pins him down and roars, but decides to let him go. Hiccup did free him after all, the thing with the thorn and the lion's paw and all that. When Hiccup gets home, Stoic, after much waffling, tells him that he's gonna start dragon training with the other teenagers so he can sharpen up his dragon killing skills to become a true Viking. It's like your dad signing up for Little League. Also, just the perfect thing to hear immediately after not killing a dragon because it stared at you with big stupid puppy dog eyes and now you're wondering if this war is even worth it. Anyway, Stoic leaves his son to fail in training as he goes off with a crew of Vikings to search for the dragon's nest. But of course, Hiccup just isn't a killer, especially after his encounter with the wounded Night Fury. The other teens, Astrid, Fishleg, Snotlout, and the twins Roughnut and Toughnut make fun of him, but that's okay. Hiccup doesn't need human friends. How to Train Your Dragon 1AF. Hiccup finds the fallen Night Fury living in a remote cave and notices the reason that he hasn't left is because he's been grounded. His tail got damaged during the fall and he can't fly anymore. He manages to get close to the dragon by enticing him with some fish and even befriends him. When the dragon awkwardly attempts to mimic a human smile, Hiccup decides to name him Toothless, even though he totally has teeth, like they're huge, they just retract. Anyway, the two become fast friends and begin a double life of forbidden friendship. Hiccup builds Toothless a prosthetic fin for his tail, allowing him to fly. Well, only when Hiccup is there to ride him, though. Through this friendship, Hiccup also learns about various ways to train and tame dragons, making all of the other teens in dragon training super jealous and confused. One day, Astrid follows Hiccup to see just exactly what he's been up to. At first, she's horrified by his friendship with such a fearsome beast, but after Hiccup takes her on a ride and rips off a whole new world, she realizes that she's been completely wrong about dragons. They also come across the dragon's nest and learn of the Red Death, the dragon forcing all of the other dragons to steal livestock for it. When Stoic returns after failing to find the dragon's nest, he's utterly shocked to hear about how his son has become the talk of the town with his dragon skills. He brings the whole village to see Hiccup's final exam where he must fight and kill a monstrous nightmare. However, he showcases his dragon training skills, angering Stoic, because, being friends with dragons is not the same thing as killing dragons. In his anger, Stoic spooks the monstrous nightmare, prompting an attack. Toothless hears Hiccup's distress from some really far away location and rushes to the scene, but the Vikings capture him on sight. Stoic, furious with Hiccup, learns of the existence of the nest and uses Toothless to find it and exterminate the dragons once and for all. Luckily, Hiccup, Astrid, and all of his new friends team up with the remaining dragons to follow Stoic, save Toothless, and defeat the Red Death. The Red Death emerges and attacks the Vikings, and the ship that Toothless is chained to gets hit and begins to sink. Thankfully, Hiccup dives in and rescues his friend. Stoic apologizes to his son, and then the duo go kick some Red Death. They defeat the beast, setting the dragons free, but in the midst of the fight, Hiccup loses his left leg. It's an occupational hazard of being a Viking. But hey, Gobber just makes him a prosthetic leg. It's kind of in his wheelhouse. And now he and his best friend match. With that, Berk enters a new era of peace, where Vikings and dragons can live together in harmony. Also, Hiccup and Astrid start dating. That's a pretty important detail. Okay, so the hooligans learn how to train their dragons, but I don't have a dragon, so I guess I'm out of luck? Thankfully, our sponsor for this video, Skillshare, has a whole bunch of courses available to choose from, so I don't have to worry about luck. Skillshare has no shortage of photography classes all about taking Instagram-worthy photos. What equipment to use, how to shoot in different lighting, best practices when editing and touching up, it's all covered. And then all I have to do is remember that I have an Instagram account. Let's be real though, I probably shouldn't have a dragon anyway. I can barely take care of my plants and they're plastic. But if I ever wanted to make a jump to a real plant or dragon, Skillshare also has courses focused on gardening or caring for your potted plants. So if you want to start trading your camera skills or your gardening skills or your dragon skills or whatever, Skillshare is giving away a free 2-month unlimited access trial to any channel Frederator subscribers who click the link in the description box. After that, you only have to pay about $10 a month, and that's pretty good for the vast wealth of classes that they offer. Anyway, let's get back to Berk, though we're still in an era of peace and happiness for people, dragons, and houseplants alike, so what could possibly go wrong? Defenders of Berk, 1.5 AF. During the new era of peace, the teens help Gobber settle an old score with the Bone Napper and even befriend it. Hiccup continues to update the Book of Dragons with new information on taming and befriending them, and Berk celebrates its first Snoggletog with their new dragon friends. However, things aren't all sunshine and rainbows. Keeping all the dragons under control isn't easy, and some townsfolk, such as the angry old Viking Mildew, still have a deep hatred for the dragons. During this period, Alvin, now known as the Treacherous, makes his return by seeking out the Dragon Conqueror, which is Hiccup. After a fierce battle, Alvin vows that he will gain Hiccup's knowledge and one day ride dragons as well. He eventually kidnaps the parents of a young girl named Heather, forcing her to bring him Hiccup's knowledge on dragon training in exchange for their lives. Heather hides in a shipwreck and allows herself to be discovered by the dragon riders, pretending to be the survivor of a pirate attack. Hiccup's a nice guy, so he believes her and allows her to stay with his family. Astrid is suspicious of Heather and soon uncovers her plans to betray them, but before she can warn Hiccup, Heather steals the Book of Dragons and Astrid's dragon Stormfly. The dragon riders manage to capture Heather, but not before the book falls into the hands of Alvin's outcasts. However, when the good guys launch an attack on Alvin's forces, she escapes from prison to join the hooligans. They all defeat Alvin and set Heather's parents free. During that year's Bork Week, Hiccup discovers where the Night Furies came from and goes with Toothless to investigate. However, it turns out that they were fake rumors started by Mildew, who now aligns himself with Alvin. Once again, Alvin tries to force Hiccup's dragon training knowledge out of him, but Hiccup and Toothless escape. Still, they know Alvin is hunting them, so they're constantly on edge. And as if that wasn't enough, Oswald's unhinged son, Dagger the Deranged, now leads the Berserker tribe. Dagger sees Hiccup's possession of a dragon as a violation of the peace treaty between the two tribes, so he reignites the war with the hooligans. Soon, Alvin and the Berserkers enter an agreement to attack Berk together, but Dagger double-crosses Alvin to take control of his forces, enslaving a frozen Skrill and using it to assassinate him. Surprisingly, Alvin survives and teams up with Hiccup to take down the Berserkers and usher in a new era of peace. Well, for a bit. Race to the Edge, 4 AF. 3 years after the defeat of the Berserkers, Dagger escapes from his prison cell on Outcast Island. Hiccup finds out from a trader named Johann since Dagger stole his ship. He believes that Dagger is heading to the ship graveyard in search of the Dragon Eye, but Hiccup and Toothless arrive first and claim it for themselves. Over the course of the next few months, they try to decipher the Dragon Eye and track down Dagger. Turns out that Heather is Dagger's sister, and Stoic gave her the horn when she was a newborn. Remember that from earlier? On top of all of this, a new threat emerges in the form of the Dragon Hunters, led by Riker and Vigo Grimborn. Naturally, Dagger teams up with them, because of course he does. Heather does as well, shocking everyone by joining forces with her brother. However, she's secretly working as a double agent, spying on the hunters and reporting back to the riders. After Dagger finds out she's a spy, he locks her up, but she manages to convince him to let her go since they're siblings. Riker and Vigo maroon Dagger for helping Heather escape. He spends some time in isolation and eventually has a change of heart and allies himself with the hooligans. After a battle with the hunters, the riders help Dagger and Heather restore Berserker Island to its former glory and search for their father, Oswald. Around this time, the hunters betray Vigo and elect Riker as their new leader. Vigo briefly allies himself with the riders, defending Berserker Island in a battle that ends in Riker's death. Shortly after, however, he takes Astrid hostage so that he can take the Dragon's Eye for himself. Somehow he survives falling into a volcano with the eye, and from there he partners with Krogan, the leader of the Dragon Flyers and the man who escaped with Drago years prior. Given the track record of villains in this series, it was only a matter of time before Krogan betrayed Vigo. After Vigo helps Krogan by retrieving the Dragon's Eye from the volcano, Krogan rewards him by collapsing a cave on top of him. Somehow, surviving that, Vigo teams up with Hiccup one final time to retrieve the Dragon's Eye from Krogan. In the end, Vigo redeems himself, but at the cost of his own life. Nonetheless, Krogan and his forces use the Dragon's Eye lens to find the King of Dragons, a massive bewilderbeast dragon living beneath Berserker Island. Thankfully, Hiccup and Toothless stop Krogan before he can capture the dragon or its egg. Krogan returns to Drago and begs for a second chance, but Drago is not messing around, so he executes Krogan. The Return of Drago, 5 AF. By now, Hiccup has made Berk a society that can coexist peacefully with dragons. They raise dragons around the island, have a dragon wash, fire prevention services, and all-you-can-eat feeding stations. It's a regular utopia. With Berk safe, Hiccup and Toothless venture out to chart unknown islands and expand their world. While on a distant island, a man named Eret attacks them. He's a dragon trapper who sells dragons to Drago. He warns them of Drago's impending return, and his men attempt to trap Toothless, but Astrid shows up and helps Hiccup and Toothless escape. Back on Berk, Hiccup tells tells his father of Drago, causing him to fortify the island and prepare for war. Hiccup asks Aerith if he can meet with Drago to come to an agreement and avoid the war, but Stoic arrives and stops him before he can go to Drago. While flying amongst the clouds thinking of what to do, Hiccup encounters a rogue dragon rider who turns out to be his mother, Valka. She shows him the dragon sanctuary she's been living in all these years. When Stoic and Gobber catch up to Hiccup, Stoic is shocked and relieved to see his wife is still alive. However, the celebration is cut short when Drago attacks the sanctuary so he can capture the King of Dragons, the bewilderbeast that resides inside. Drago himself has his own bewilderbeast, which he controls through a barbaric torture method. He forces the two dragons to fight to determine who is the true alpha of all dragons, and his dragon emerges victorious. Hiccup flies in to stop him, but Drago uses his torture method to control Toothless and orders him to kill his own best friend. As Toothless goes in for the kill, Stoic jumps in the way to save his son. Devastated, Hiccup screams at Toothless to leave as he mourns his father's death. Stoic died, by the way. It didn't go well for him. They hold a funeral for him, and Drago and his bewilderbeast freeze over Burke. After that good old end of second act, all is lost moment, Hiccup reunites with Toothless, reassuring him that it wasn't his fault, and the two go after Drago. In the end, Drago is defeated, Hiccup becomes the new chief of Burke, and Toothless becomes the new Alpha Dragon. Oh, and Valka comes back to live on Burke, and peace returns. Briefly, as it always does. The Hidden World, 6 AF. 1 year later, Hiccup and his friends continue to rescue dragons from hunters and trappers. When Hiccup remembers the mythical hidden world that his father spoke of, he searches for it to secure a true safe haven for the dragons. A group of warlords capture a female Night Fury, a Light Fury, and give her to a dragon hunter named Grimmel the Grizzly. He's the man responsible for nearly wiping out the Night Furies in the first place. To finish the job, Grimmel plans to use the Light Fury as bait to capture Toothless. Toothless encounters the Light Fury and falls in love, and Hiccup's happy for him. That night, Grimmel introduces himself to Hiccup and burns his house to the ground. That's a little rude. Hiccup realizes that Burke is no longer safe, and they must search for a new Burke, because just like Asgard, Burke is a people, not a place. Settling on a new temporary island, Hiccup builds a new tail for Toothless, allowing him to fly on his own, finally. Toothless flies off to find the Light Fury on his own, while Grimmel and his forces follow closely behind. In their search for Toothless and the Light Fury, Hiccup and Astrid discover the hidden world and find that Toothless is happy there. Toothless takes them back to New Burke, and Hiccup realizes that humans have no business being in the hidden world. He's gonna have to say goodbye to his best friend, and it's not gonna be easy. Suddenly, Grimmel attacks and captures the two dragons. Hiccup and the gang go after Grimmel, defeating him and saving the dragons. However, Hiccup knows that dragons will never truly be safe as long as there are humans who will harm them. The hooligans set their dragons free, and Toothless says goodbye to his dear friend Hiccup as the dragons return to the hidden world. Reunion, 15 AF, which is like a 9-year time skip. Hiccup and Astrid marry and have two children named Zephyr and Nothing. The family sets sail to the hidden world's entrance to visit the dragons. When they get there, Toothless is guarding the entrance with the Light Fury and their offspring. At first, he doesn't recognize Hiccup and attacks. But after remembering his scent, he immediately gives his old friend a big fat lick. I don't like that line. Can I say something else? No, I'm not gonna say a thick lick. Whatever, Hiccup vows that until humans can live peacefully with dragons, they must stay within the hidden world while the hooligans of Burke guard their secret. And there it is, 10 years of films, shorts, TV shows, comics, a whole bunch of stuff with the beautiful friendship between a boy and his dragon, bat, cat thing at the center of it all.
Now that we've got the timeline straight, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Ever wanted to know more about the series? Find out some stuff behind the scenes? Well, you're in luck. It's time for 107 facts about How to Train Your Dragon.
Pete had Elliot, Bastion had Falkor, and Mulan had Mushu. No matter how many more times Hollywood will pair humans with dragons, none will ever quite compare to the bond shared by Hiccup and Toothless from the critically acclaimed animated tale, How to Train Your Dragon. What began as one animated film became a full-fledged franchise practically overnight, and we've got all the fiery details. Number 1. How to Train Your Dragon is the 19th feature film released by Disney's arch-nemesis, DreamWorks Animation, known for creating animated gems like The Prince of Egypt, Kung Fu Panda, and the savior of Smash Mouth's career, Shrek. Number 2. Much like Shrek, How to Train Your Dragon was loosely based on a children's book series of the same name. The series was written by British children's author Cressida Cowell, who released 12 books from 2003 to 2015. Number 3. Cowell's book series was based off the author's childhood experiences spent on a remote island off the coast of Scotland. The island was without the luxuries of electricity and roads, and so Cowell began imagining the isolated land as the backdrop for a story about Vikings and dragons. Number 4. DreamWorks first acquired the rights to Cressida Cowell's books as early as 2004. 2004. Coming off the success producer Bonnie Arnold had with DreamWorks' Over the Hedge, the studio asked Arnold to handpick the next property she would like to work on next. She, of course, chose How to Train Your Dragon. Number 5. Producer Bonnie Arnold was so interested in adapting to How to Train Your Dragon because the relationship between Hiccup and Toothless was something most audiences could identify with, especially those out there with pets, like cats and dogs. According to Arnold, she's been told many times by viewers that Toothless reminds them of their favorite pet. Number 6. The film was originally to be directed by Peter Hastings, the man behind Disney's The Country Bears, but Hastings left the project after the passing of his wife. Number 7. Peter Hastings' vision for the film was drastically different than the one that was released into theaters. Before DeBlow and Sanders came aboard, the film was extremely loyal to the source material, and had a happy-go-lucky, whimsical tone that the studio executives saw as being far too young for the demographic they wanted. Number 8. The film wound up being directed by Chris Sanders and Dean DeBlow. The duo had previously co-directed Disney's Lilo and Stitch back in 2001. So stories about outcasts befriending misunderstood creatures is kind of their thing. Number 9. Producer Bonnie Arnold handpicked Dean and Chris to helm the film, the three having previously known each other back from when they worked for Disney, with Chris and Dean working on Lilo and Stitch at the same time that Arnold was producing Tarzan. Number 10. How to Train Your Dragon was in development for 4 years without much progress being made before it was given to Sanders and DeBlow. To make matters more challenging, the directors had a mere 15 months to reinvent the film into the masterpiece it would eventually become, a task that usually takes about 3 years. Number 11. Not only were Chris Sanders and Dean DeBlow pulled in at the last minute to helm a crumbling project that needed to be finished quickly, but it was also the first time the duo had ever worked on a CG animated film, so everything was a learning experience for them. Number 12. When Sanders and DeBlow were initially brought on board to direct the project, they were given 3 tasks by DreamWorks head honcho, Jeffrey Katzenberg. The plot had to focus on a strained father-son relationship, the smallest Viking had to go on a quest that would culminate in him defeating the biggest and most menacing dragon, and finally, it had to appeal to a broad audience with a tone akin to the Harry Potter series. Number 13. According to Dean DeBlow, the directors referred to James Cameron's Avatar when establishing the look of the film, aiming for something whimsical yet grounded in reality. Middle ground between CGI and live-action filmmaking? Yep. This film was definitely made in 2010. Number 14. The directors brought aboard acclaimed Academy Award-winning cinematographer Roger Deakins to consult on the lighting of the film in order to achieve a look that was as close to photorealism as they could get. Deakins is mostly known for his stellar work on the Coen brother films, like No Country for Old Men, and for his workshops regarding his theories of light. Number 15. In the book series, the Vikings had a more cowboy-horse relationship with the dragons for generations. To add more of a conflict to the story, the directors decided to begin the story with the Vikings and the dragons as mortal enemies fighting in a rivalrous war. For the sake of Hiccup's story arc, it was decided that he, the smallest and most insignificant Viking, would be the one to end the feud and establish the partnership found in the books. Number 16. Toothless is practically nothing like he is in the books. In the novels, Toothless is a small, iguana-sized runt that Hiccup would crush if he ever even attempted to mount him. In fact, Hiccup doesn't ride Toothless in the novels until the 6th book in the series. Talk about things escalating quickly. Number 17. The filmmakers increased Toothless' size and made him a Night Fury because they wanted to give Hiccup more of a challenge in achieving the previously impossible bond between dragons and Vikings. And what's more challenging than a large fire-breathing creature with the capacity to end your life in a heartbeat? Number 18. Toothless was originally designed to resemble a wolf, but after seeing a black leopard on the screensaver of a DreamWorks animator, it was decided that Toothless would take on a more feline appearance. Number 19. The final design and personality of Toothless was based on that of cats, dogs, horses, and even salamanders. And if Toothless' face seemed a little familiar to any Disney fanatics out there, it was partially inspired by the face of Stitch. The directors worked on that film too, so it makes sense that they're similar. Number 20. The filmmaker strove to make Hiccup literally smaller than the world he lives in, depicting objects and environments as larger than life. They did this to emphasize that this wasn't a typical animated film in which the characters make it out unscathed, but one of real danger that could demand a great sacrifice. Number 21. The filmmakers referred back to the 1979 film The Black Stallion when developing Toothless' character and story. Have you seen it? See any similarities? Number 22. The first sequence Sanders and DeBlow worked on upon inheriting the project was the scene they referred to as the Forbidden Friendship, which wound up becoming the scene in which Hiccup and Toothless cross the threshold of trust and ignite their friendship when Hiccup provides food and a prosthetic for the injured and helpless Toothless. Number 23. One problem the directors came across while writing the story was establishing the connection between Toothless and Hiccup visually. It was Chris Sanders that came up with the idea of Toothless mimicking Hiccup's movements and gestures, namely his smile. Sanders illustrated the scene before writing it, as the directors knew from the get-go that it would lack dialogue and it would be driven by music. Number 24. Toothless hesitation during the scene in which Hiccup places his hand atop his head was actually a glitch in the animation software, but the animators thought that this accidental timing worked so beautifully that they left it in. Happy little accidents, people! Number 25. According to the filmmakers, the relationship between Toothless and Hiccup is much more than that of a human and their pet dog. They see each other as equals and best friends, just like two humans would consider each other. Number 26. The animators would use their own pets and research their movements to implement into Toothless's performance. They even spent a lot of time on YouTube watching cat and dog videos, making one of the few times in history such an activity served a productive purpose. Number 27. Much like the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park films, the sounds Toothless makes are a mixture of different animals, including horses, whales, elephants, and even the voice of the film's sound designer, Randy Thom. Number 28. To get a better idea of what noises Toothless would make in specific situations, Randy Thom would have Dean DeBlow write lines of dialogue that Toothless would say if he could speak English. Number 29. The sound that the Terrible Terrors make come from a viral YouTube sensation known as Paco the Chihuahua, a dog that makes a unique yet disturbing sound that resonated with the sound designer at Skywalker Sound, so much that they actually contacted Paco's owner and had the dog record audio for the film. Paco was paid $100 for his services. That's a lot of kibble. Number 30. Astrid didn't exist in the How to Train Your Dragon books. The film team felt their story needed a strong, capable female character that young girls could look up to. Thus, Astrid was willed into existence. Number 31. The directors toyed around with the idea of killing off a character in the first film's final battle, but they thought it would be a little too extreme, so they decided to have Hiccup lose a leg instead. They did this not just to depict a hero's sacrifice, but to mirror Toothless's injury at the start of the film in order to give the characters a further connection. The producers were worried that it wouldn't go well with parents, but they were surprisingly okay with it during test screenings. Number 32. In one of the film's original cuts, Hiccup was to wake up from the final battle to learn of and cope with the loss of his leg alone. After viewing this cut, directing legend Steven Spielberg suggested that Toothless be there in the room with Hiccup to lighten up the scene, and to reinforce their relationship as something more akin to a friendship and less of a cowboy's relationship with a horse. Number 33. The voice actors were already cast before Sanders and DeBlow were brought on to helm the project, only to have all of that dialogue scrapped after the last-minute rewrite of the script. So basically, they recorded almost 2 movies worth of dialogue.
Are you kidding me?
Number 34. Hiccup is played by actor Jay Baruchel. To date, the character is the only voice role that Baruchel has ever played, and he has played him over 8 times for the films, TV show, and video games. Number 35. Stoic's voice was provided by Scottish actor Gerard Butler, who has been immortalized by the internet for shouting, "This is Sparta" in the 2006 Zack Snyder film 300, in which he played King Leonidas. Number 36. Actress America Ferrera is the voice behind Hiccup's badass love interest, Astrid. Ferrera is perhaps best known for her role as Betty Suarez on ABC's hit comedy series, Ugly Betty. Number 37. America Ferrera has wanted to be in an animated movie since she was a child, as they were a huge part of her childhood and continue to be important to her to this very day. She even said that she tries to find excuses to watch animated movies as she gets older, joking that she would kidnap children just so she could take them to see the latest animated flick. I mean, as long as she returns them afterward, what's the harm in that? Number 38. Garber's lovely vocals were provided by British comedian Craig Ferguson, formerly of The Late Late Show. Ferguson has a knack for appearing on several animated films and TV shows, like Brave, Winnie the Pooh, and American Dad. Number 39. Comedic actor Jonah Hill plays Snotlout, a departure from Hill's typically more R-rated career in films like 21 Jump Street, This Is the End, and of course Superbad. Number 40. The twins Roughnut and Toughnut are played by comedic actors Kristen Wiig and TJ Miller, both of whom are no stranger to playing animated characters. Wiig has also played Brenda in Sausage Party, while Miller portrayed Fred in Disney's Big Hero 6. Number 41. While voice acting sessions typically utilize one actor in the booth at a time, the directors were sure to get some of the actors behind the secondary characters together in the booth as often as possible to get better improvisation and chemistry out of them. Number 42. Whenever the cast wasn't able to record dialogue together, which was 99% of the time, the cast members in the booth would compensate by first watching an animatic of the scene with whatever voices had been compiled at the time. Next, they would get into the booth and read the lines off to Dean DeBlow, who would stand in for every other character. According to Baruchel, Dean's take on Hiccup was hilariously bad. Number 43. The reasons the accents greatly differ between the adults and the children in the series was because the directors wanted to create a very noticeable gap between the 2 generations of Vikings. They referred to the likes of Stoic and Gobber as true Vikings, while Hiccup and friends are more like the kids at the Sherman Oaks Mall. Number 44. Jay Baruchel prefers voice acting over physical acting. Despite the fact that he's been in front of a camera since he was 12, Jay just never feels quite as comfortable on a set with dozens of crew members and set lights looking at him as he does in a booth with the director and a few sound engineers. engineers. Number 45. Jay also prefers not having an idea of what the final product looks like, as other actors often do with live action. He instead craves the surprise that comes with seeing everything come together as it does in an animated film. Number 46. The film's musical score was composed by the Oscar-nominated musician John Powell. Powell has worked with DreamWorks Animation on more than 3 occasions, contributing to the music of Ants, The Road to El Dorado, Chicken Run, Kung Fu Panda, and Shrek. Number 47. Powell looked to concept art and listened to the works of Finnish musician Gene Sibelius for inspiration when writing the film's score, but ultimately chose to create something more in the vein of Celtic melodies instead of something more true to Norse culture. Number 48. DreamWorks Animation has a tendency to customize the iconic boy fishing on the moon logo with something pertaining to the film that's about to start. For How to Train Your Dragon's DreamWorks logo, you can briefly see Toothless soaring quickly across the night sky. Number 49. Gloria the Hippo from DreamWorks Madagascar makes quite a grim cameo appearance in the film. Before Toothless brings Astrid and Hiccup to the dragon's nest, take a close look at the pudgy gray snack the monstrous nightmare is carrying back to the nest. To make matters worse, the directors have confirmed that this is Gloria. Number 50. One of the designs seen on Hiccup's design board is that of a flux capacitor, the device that makes time travel possible in the Back to the Future trilogy. Number 51. Gobber has a total of 14 different attachments for his severed hand throughout the course of the first film. They're quite handy if you ask me. I'll shut up now. Number 52. Stoic is something of a giant, standing at a whopping 6'9" tall. I knew there was a reason he looked like a ginger Hagrid. Number 53. Toothless is a truly unique dragon, as he is the very last known living specimen of his kind, the Night Fury. Only time will tell if the rest are truly gone forever. How to Train Your Dragon 3? Number 54. Night Furies were previously referred to as the unholy offspring of lighting and death itself. After Hiccup got a closer look at one, it turns out that they don't quite live up to the title. They're more like the scaly, flying, fire-breathing equivalent of a house cat. Number 55. Toothless has an echolocation sense akin to that of a radar. He can spit a ball of plasma that bounces off nearby terrain and back to him, which gives him a highly accurate reading of his surroundings. Take that, Google Maps. Number 56. At the end of a private screening of the film held towards the end of its production, Steven Spielberg claimed that How to Train Your Dragon was the best work DreamWorks Animation had ever done up to that point. Coming from the man that made E.T. and Jurassic Park, that sort of means a lot. Number 57. How to Train Your Dragon was released in the US on March 26, 2010, and conquered the North American box office until its opening weekend, raking in $43.7 million and beating out the Hot Tub Time Machine. Number 58. By the end of its theatrical run, How to Train Your Dragon accumulated nearly $500 million worldwide, making it the highest-grossing non-Shrek DreamWorks film at the time. It became the 5th highest-grossing animated film of 2010, losing out only to Toy Story 3, Shrek Forever After, Tangled, and Despicable Me. Number 59. How to Train Your Dragon was nominated for not 1, but 2 Oscars at the 83rd Academy Awards in 2011. Chris Sanders and Dean DeBlow were nominated for Best Animated Feature, while John Powell was nominated for Best Original Score, but lost out to Toy Story 3 and The Social Network, respectively. There's always next time, guys. Number 60. The series became so popular that it got its very own arena show in 2012, How to Train Your Dragon Live Spectacular. It ran in Australia, New Zealand, the United States, Canada, and even China. The show featured highly advanced dragon animatronics created by Global Creatures, the workshop behind the dinosaurs that appeared in Walking with Dinosaurs, the Arena Spectacular, with 24 dragon animatronics being utilized for the production. Number 61. After it dominated the silver screen, How to Train Your Dragon established itself as a TV series on Cartoon Network in 2012 with the new title, DreamWorks Dragons, Riders of Berk. It covers the 5 years of Hiccup and Toothless's adventures that occurred between the first and second film, with most of the voice cast returning to reprise their roles from the films. Number 62. Unlike the other DreamWorks TV series that aired before it, Dragons was the first to find a home on Cartoon Network, whereas all the other series before it, like The Penguins of Madagascar and Kung Fu Panda, Legends of Awesomeness, were on Nickelodeon. Number 63. In 2015, the Dragon series got with the times and transitioned from Cartoon Network to the renowned streaming service, and the source of procrastination amongst college students, Netflix, with the series rebranding itself as Dragons, Race to the Edge. It has 3 seasons so far. Number 64. A sequel for How to Train Your Dragon was such a no-brainer that it was greenlit by the studio a mere month after it was completed. At the same time, pre-production on the second film began immediately after its official premiere. Number 65. Dean DeBlow returned as a writer and director for How to Train Your Dragon 2. Chris Sanders instead opted to pursue a newer DreamWorks property, The Croods. Number 66. DeBlow told DreamWorks he would helm the second film on one condition. The second film wouldn't be an aimless sequel, but the second act in a trilogy that would tell the story of Hiccup Hiccup's transformation from being the runt of a Viking litter to becoming the fearless and respected chieftain. As you probably know, the higher-ups at DreamWorks agreed to DeBlow's terms. Number 67. Dean cites The Empire Strikes Back as a major influence on the sequel, as it was able to maintain what fans of the original Star Wars loved, while expanding it in new and exciting ways, like making the story darker, exploring more mature themes, and raising the stakes, all things the director strove to achieve. He definitely did a good job making his own Hoth, that's for sure. Number 68. The decision to place How to Train Your Dragon 2 in an Arctic-like environment came from Dean DeBlow's lifelong fascination with the North and South Poles. To get a sense of those environments, the animation team took a research trip to Svalbard, which is the last spot up north before the pole. They saw plenty of polar bears, but no Santa. Number 69. Since the film takes place 5 years after the first film, Hiccup was bound to look quite different from his younger counterpart found in the original film. According to production designer Pierre Oliver Vincent, they went through at least 50 different redesigns of the character before settling on the Hiccup we see in the film. Number 70. By the time the second film starts, Hiccup's curiosity evolves into wanderlust, leading Toothless and himself to explore beyond the Vikings' world and into the unknown, where the duo discovers new, exciting, and terrifying lands never before experienced by Viking kind. Number 71. At one point in the film's development, Hiccup's mother, Valka, was to be the main antagonist of the film. She would have discovered that Hiccup was the reason Toothless was handicapped, sending her into a furious and psychotic rage that would culminate in an attack on Burke. Fortunately, this much darker take was scrapped. Number 72. When it was decided that Valka wouldn't be a Darth Vader, Drago was made the main villain, going against the original trajectory the trilogy would take. Had Valka been the villain of the second installment, Drago would have only been teased. He would have instead been introduced in the third film as the main villain. Number 73. In designing Drago, they decided to give him an exotic look different from the Nordic region to show how ambitious of a character he is. He literally has come a very long way to achieve his goal, so far that he will only stop when he's dead. Number 74. Drago was designed to resemble a massive predatory animal, sporting pitch black eyes, a nose that resembles the beak of an eagle, and dark clothing that not only makes him appear massive, but covers up a limb he has lost. According to DeBlow, Drago has made himself appear this way to accommodate for his handicap, and appear invincible and menacing to both his foes and minions alike. Number 75. In an early outline of the second film's plot, it was Gobber, not Stoic, that was slated to be killed off by a brainwashed Toothless. After running it by Guillermo del Toro, director of Pan's Labyrinth and Hellboy, the legendary filmmakers suggest that Stoic should be killed off instead, making for a much bigger impact in Hiccup's overall arc, and passing the torch of chieftain from father to son. This contribution to the story earned del Toro a special thanks in the film's credits. Number 76. The studio was split on the scene in which Toothless is forced to kill Hiccup, and Stoic sacrifices himself to save his son. Steven Spielberg came to the rescue yet again and defended the scene, claiming that it was strong, different, and bold. He also said that filmmakers could afford to lose Stoic, referring to Valka as a safety net for Hiccup so that he wouldn't be flat out orphaned. Number 77. DeBlow states that he was most stressed out about how the audience would receive the scene in which Toothless kills Stoic, and compares it to the anxiety he felt about how the public would react to Hiccup losing his leg in the first film. Much like the first gamble, this one paid off. Seriously, DeBlow should take a trip to Vegas sometime. Number 78. Hiccup's transition from a boy into a man through the death of his father was partially inspired by events in Dean DeBlow's past. At age 19, Dean's father had passed away, serving as a jumping off point for his own childhood and what he considers to be the beginning of his adulthood. Number 79. How to Train Your Dragon 2 was the first feature-length animated film to use revolutionary animation software called Apollo, taking the immediacy of hand-drawn animation, the tangibility of stop-motion animation, and the editing of computer animation, to make for a quick and seamless means of crafting new and exciting stories. Number 80. The sequel was worked on for a whopping 4 years, with development ending in a matter of weeks before its official premiere. By the time it wrapped production, over 50 animators had contributed to the film in some capacity. That's a lot of carpal tunnel. Number 81. To seamlessly and efficiently create the hundreds of background dragons that appear in the sequel, the animators came up with a modular system that creates multiple combinations of dragons based off of a certain number of pre-created heads, bodies, wings, and colors. Number 82. A lot of mothers who were brought in for test screenings didn't take too kindly to Valka, namely because previous drafts of the story had Valka willingly abandoned her family to be with dragons. To remedy the situation, they altered the narrative so Valka was instead taken away from her family by a dragon and refused to return because her appreciation for dragons would put her son in danger. Number 83. Hiccup's long-lost mother was played by the two-time Oscar-winning actress Cate Blanchett, known for her stellar performances in the films like The Lord of the Rings, Blue Jasmine, and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Number 84. Dean DeBlois first approached Cate Blanchett about playing Valka at the 2011 Academy Awards. Luckily for DeBlois, Cate was thrilled to join the project, especially because of how popular the first film was with her own sons. Number 85. When pitching Valka to Blanchett at the Oscars, DeBlois described her as being somewhat feral version of Diane Fossey, an American zoologist that extensively researched mountain gorillas for 18 years, and that Valka has been removed from human society and is living amongst a community of dragons for 20 years. Almost immediately, Blanchett hunched over in her gorgeous gown and began using her hands as if they were dragon claws. That kind of dedication is how you win 2 Oscars, folks. Number 86. Despite the authentic Scottish accent Valka possesses, Cate Blanchett is actually Australian, and multi-talented. Number 87. DeBlois describes Valka as a mix between actresses Tilda Swinton and 1980s action star Bridget Nelson. Despite this, Cate Blanchett was always the director's first choice for the role, stating that Cate is great at expressing vulnerability while also commanding a powerful presence. Number 88. Cate Blanchett refers to the moment Hiccup sees the masked Valka for the first time as the greatest entry of a character in cinema history. Blanchett makes her case by saying she appears from beneath the clouds, completely out of nowhere, wearing heavy armor and a mask, making it difficult for viewers to tell whether or not this character is a friend or foe, leading to a reveal that surprises Hiccup as much as it does the audience. Number 89. The villainous vocals of Drago were provided by the Oscar-nominated actor Djimon Hounsou, who's previously appeared in films like The Gladiator, Blood Diamond, and Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 90. Before starting his recording sessions, Djimon Hounsou would take part in several vocal exercises to better prepare his vocal cords for his performance. One of these exercises was a horrifying scream that resonated with Dean DeBlois so much that he implemented it into Drago's character. Number 91. The pretentious Eret, son of Eret, the last in a long line of Erets, was vocally brought to life by actor Kit Harington. He also plays a character named Jon Snow on some TV show, I don't know, Game of Thrones. You probably haven't heard of it before. Number 92. Kit Harington finds voice acting to be a bit more difficult than physical acting, as he can only use his voice. Throughout his recording sessions, he would occasionally get carried away and began making drastic movements as he spoke, moving him in and out of the microphone's range, and prompting many retakes. Whoops. Number 93. The only scene in which Jay Baruchel and America Ferrera recorded their lines at the same time was for their first scene together in which Astrid does an impersonation of Hiccup. Ferrera states that being in the same room with Jay really helped her out with that part especially.
I don't sound like that. What is this character?
Number 94. When Valka and Stoic bicker at each other in How to Train Your Dragon 2, Gobber tells Hiccup, "This is why I never married." That and one other reason. Both director Dean DeBlois and Craig Ferguson have come out and said that Gobber is basically telling Hiccup that he's gay, making him one of the first and few animated characters to come out as such. While Dean DeBlois has come out as openly gay, he said that the character trait was an ad-lib made by Ferguson. Number 95. John Powell returned to score the sequel and based the new soundtrack off of the film's central theme of maturing, taking several tunes from the first film and developing them further. Number 96. During Toothless's fight with the Alpha, you can briefly hear the Alpha make part of Godzilla's iconic roar as he's being hit by Toothless's fireballs. Number 97. How to Train Your Dragon 2 premiered as an entry at the 2014 Cannes Film Festival in May 2014, with the US red carpet premiere occurring at the Regency Village Theater in Los Angeles a little under a month later in June 2014. Number 98. The sequel was released theatrically on June 13, 2014, and went on to the second highest grossing animated film of 2014, only being beaten out by Disney's Big Hero 6. It raked in a total of $621 million worldwide. Number 99. How to Train Your Dragon 2 was the first film by DreamWorks Animation to win a Golden Globe, beating out Big Hero 6, The Book of Life, The Box Trolls, and denying the Lego Movie yet another award. Number 100. After having stakes in movies, TV shows, and video games, it was only a matter of time before the franchise entered the ever-so-popular comic book genre, with Dark Horse Comics developing several graphic novels based on the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. The first is titled The Serpent's Heir, and was released in February of 2017. Number 101. The Serpent's Heir was written by the film's director, Dean DeBlois, and lead writer for the TV series, Richard Hamilton. The Serpent's Heir takes place literally 1 minute after the conclusion of the second film. It tells the story of Hiccup and friends helping the people of an island dealing with earthquakes. At the center of it all is a madman with both an evil scheme and a powerful dragon in his possession that not even Alpha Dragon Toothless can seem to control. Number 102. How to Train Your Dragon 3 has had its fair share of delays, originally aiming to come out a mere 2 years later in June 2016, but the studio realized it was better not to rush quality and pushed it to June 2017. However, when Pacific Data Images closed and DreamWorks was hit with layoffs, it was pushed back to 2018. Then, in December of 2016, it was announced that the film would hopefully be released in March 2019. That's a lot of delays. Poor Toothless. Number 103. Despite the rocky road the production has faced, Dean DeBlois will return to the director's chair for How to Train Your Dragon 3, with Bonnie Arnold returning to oversee it as producer, and John Powell coming back to cook up more of those sweet, sweet melodies. Looks like the gang's back together again. Well, some of them. Yes. Number 104. Each film in the series has been distributed by a different studio, with Paramount Pictures releasing the first film in 2010, followed by 20th Century Fox being attached to the sequel after signing a 5-year deal with DreamWorks in 2012, while the third film belongs to Universal Pictures after their purchase of DreamWorks Animation in 2016. That's a lot of studio surfing. Number 105. Following his statement that the second film is based on The Empire Strikes Back, Dean DeBlois stated that the third film will follow the trajectory of Return of the Jedi. One example of the comparison being the villainous Drago, whom the director compared to Star Wars Emperor Palpatine. Like Palpatine, Drago didn't appear in the first film. He was introduced in the second one, while the third will see him as a primary threat against the world. Dean, please just promise us that there won't be any Ewoks, okay? Thanks. Number 106. Oddly enough, Gerard Butler is confirmed to return in the third film as Stoic. While it's highly unlikely that Burke will be met with a zombie apocalypse, it will be interesting to see how the film will utilize the character. Number 107. In the third film, Hiccup has assumed Stoic's role as chief of his tribe, and Toothless has become the leader of the dragons. DeBlois describes it as a dueling story in which both Hiccup and Toothless are attempting to do what is best for their tribe, and Hiccup is able to come out of it standing on his own.
With the recent release of the live-action adaptation, people have been looking for similarities and differences between the OG and the new G. Thankfully, this remake has been pretty faithful to the fan-favorite flick, but there are some interesting differences. Let's take a look at then versus now.
How to Train Your Dragon is often considered one of DreamWorks' best films, period. The visuals, the setting, the characters, and of course, the unforgettable music that you still hear in videos to this day. Mostly meme videos, but you know what I mean. Suffice to say, when it hit theaters way back in 2010, 15 years ago, that's crazy, it was basically an instant classic. Now, 15 years later, the franchise is back, but with a little twist. Now it's live action. But how does this new version stack up against the original? Today we're taking a look at both the 2010 classic and its live-action remake and see what stayed the same, what's different, and whether the live-action version can hold a candle to the original. This is Then vs. Now, How to Train Your Dragon. Let's get started. So first, we'll talk about the story. This section will be pretty quick, because both versions follow the same basic plot. Hiccup, a scrawny, awkward teenager in a village of buff, loud, dragon-slaying Vikings, wants to prove himself by killing a dragon himself. One night, during a dragon raid, he manages to injure the rarest dragon alive, a Night Fury. Intent on finishing the job, he looks for it in the woods, but he can't finish the job and instead befriends the dragon and names him Toothless. This friendship changes the course of history and the relationship between humans and dragons forever. The animated film balances high-flying adventure with emotional depth, tackling themes like compassion, toxic tradition, and parental expectations. It never talks down to its audience, and instead it dares to let kids and adults sit with grief, growth, and tough choices to make. And personally, I love that it trusts its viewers with this information instead of babying them around. The live-action remake follows a lot of the same beats, but the tone feels a little more mature, probably because of how the pacing affects the storytelling a little. The animated film cuts between scenes so fast, but the live-action remake holds on to them a little longer, letting the audience take everything in. But overall, the story is basically the same. Next up, let's talk about the characters. With the jump to live action, characters' appearances will differ between versions, as to be expected. We'll talk about that later, but for now, let's focus on the interpretations of these characters. Hiccup. In animation, Hiccup is voiced by Jay Baruchel. Baruchel's interpretation of Hiccup is iconic, to say the least. His nasally delivery and dry wit made the character we know and love. Hiccup is sarcastic, he's book smart, and he is also wildly out of place in a village full of brutes. What makes him stand out is his heart and perseverance. His bond with Toothless becomes a metaphor for empathy and rewriting the rules. In live action, Mason Thames changes it up a bit and brings a slightly different flavor to Hiccup. He's still awkward and thoughtful, but he plays Hiccup with a more grounded sense of sadness and resolve. He feels a bit older and more emotionally burdened, but I'm wondering if that's because the actor himself is not 15 and doesn't look 15. But it's a solid reinterpretation, just a bit more dramatic than quirky. This is emphasized even more when he delivers the same lines as Jay Baruchel, but it doesn't quite have that same sarcastic punch. Doesn't mean it's bad, it's just different. Toothless, on the other hand, is basically the same. Animated Toothless was a revelation, to say the least. He's expressive, silly, loyal, and somehow manages to be cute and cool at the same time. Since Toothless doesn't have dialogue, it's all about his body language. He's both dog-like and cat-like, and those big green eyes say so much. And he's not just Hiccup's sidekick, he's his best friend. Kind of just like how dogs are man's best friend. And I honestly have no notes for his live-action interpretation because it's just Toothless and it's A+. Astrid, on the other hand, is a little different. In the animated film, Astrid is strong, focused, and confident. She starts off as Hiccup's rival, but slowly becomes his closest ally and eventually falls for him. Her respect for Hiccup grows as he proves himself through empathy, not violence, especially when she sees that he won't back down from protecting Toothless. In the live-action version, Nico Parker's performance makes Astrid feel a little bit more aggressive out the gate. She's a little mean to Hiccup at first, even going so far as to saying that he has a bit of privilege because he's the son of the chief of Burke. The performance still works, and she further highlights that growth that Astrid has when she warms up to Hiccup, which I love a lot. Stoic, voiced and now played by Gerard Butler in both versions, and what can I say? He's perfect, and practically the same in both, albeit with some subtle differences. In the animated version, Stoic's interactions with Hiccup is often played with a little humor, often leaning into some father-son misunderstandings for comedic effect. In live action, though, Butler brings a commanding presence. Sure, he's not as big as he is in the animated version, but that doesn't really affect this aspect of him. His interactions with Hiccup feel heavier and more grounded, with a little bit more tension between father and son. And oh boy, there's that one scene where he doesn't really understand why Hiccup is, doing so well in camp, and it gets really, really awkward. I don't know if it was just me, but that scene, I watched both back to back, one after the other. Honestly, I watched the live action and then I really wanted to watch the animated film again, and it's just not as awkward in animation than it is in live action. I don't know what it is about it, but it's a scene where they sit down to talk about things, and I don't know, something about the live action makes it feel way more awkward, and I guess that, it works. Lastly, let's talk about Snotlout, Fishlegs, Rough Nut, and Tough Nut, the other guys. In animation, these guys were straight up comedic relief whenever they were on screen. Snotlout is voiced by Jonah Hill and is cocky and constantly trying to impress Astrid. Fishlegs is nerdy and dragon obsessed. Rough Nut and Tough Nut are the chaotic twins who bicker constantly. In the live action version, most of their personalities stay intact, but with new spins added to them. Snotlout doesn't only try to impress Astrid, but now has some daddy issues that give him some more depth beyond just being a loudmouth. I mean, him being small compared to the other Vikings must have, made him self-conscious. And I don't know if that's my interpretation of the character, but he seems a little self-conscious. He's trying to overcompensate, and he's trying to impress daddy. The twins are basically still chaotic, but to me, I feel like Rough Nut seems more sarcastic than dumb, but also Tough Nut isn't obsessed with her looks as much as she is in her animated version. I don't know if that's just me over-analyzing, so comment down below if you think that is basically what y'all thought when you watched the film. Fishlegs, however, basically the same. Don't think he received any real differences, but they're all fairly recognizable with some subtle nuances added to their personalities. With regards to their appearances not completely matching their original counterparts, we'll turn to director Dean DuBois, who put it best. He said, quote, "We auditioned many actors for the roles, including actors who looked like their animated counterparts, but we chose the actors who best embodied the spirit and personality of the characters. Since the tribe in this version is made up of descendants of the finest dragon fighters from everywhere the Vikings have ever traveled, which historically was far and wide, Vikings mixed with many cultures, still, we're crafting a fantasy, not historical fact." And I agree. Sure, they don't look like the animated versions, but they feel like it, and I'm fine with that. Next up, let's talk about settings and visuals. In the animated trilogy, Burke is a stylized Viking village perched on a cliffside. It's colorful, exaggerated, and beautiful. It's like something that could have existed in a storybook, which is an apt description considering How to Train Your Dragon was a storybook. But suffice to say, it feels like a fantasy world, cartoonish enough, to be magical. The live-action Berk, on the other hand, was made to look real. The location it was shot in is real. It's called Tindalmer in the Faroe Islands, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. As director Dubois mentions in interviews, the location itself was embellished and made bigger in production, so it's not one-to-one with the island it was shot in. Anyway, back to the village itself. The wooden structures, muddy terrain, harsh weather, and small touches, like seeing characters' breath in the frosty air, give Berk a real-world authenticity. The set design is phenomenal. It doesn't feel like something that exists purely in fantasy. It feels like something that honestly could have existed. But we can't talk about visuals and the setting without talking about the iconic flight scenes. The original animated film gave us one of the most beautifully animated flying sequences ever. The test drive scene? Breathtaking. The way the camera moves as it follows Hiccup and Toothless was exhilarating, capturing that thrill of flying like nothing else. But the live-action version comes very close to matching that wonder. The flying scenes are epic, cinematic, and weighty. You feel the turbulence. You can see the wind ripple across the wings of the dragons. Dubois clearly knew the importance of these scenes and wanted these moments to feel huge, and they do. I would say it feels more physical and more dangerous, with the falling sequence even more chaotic in live action. Dubois even mentions that one of the inspirations for the look of the sequence were GoPro videos of people in wingsuits flying down near vertical cliffsides in Switzerland. And I feel like they captured that perfectly. It feels like you're watching a wingsuit video or someone flying in a glider or something. And the music paired up with the falling sequence was great. A nice addition to a track that's already iconic. And lastly, we'll circle back to the tone. The original animated film was an emotional roller coaster. It had humor and heart mixed in with heavier emotional themes. Hiccup's relationship with his father, his identity as a Viking, even up to that penultimate scene where it seemed all was lost. The film didn't baby the audience, instead showing them the consequences that came with the actions of the people of Berk. The live-action version keeps most of that at its very core, and while the humor is a bit toned down compared to its animated counterpart, it's still there, just less in your face. Some fans have even said that the whimsy is dialed down but the emotional weight is turned up, which I agree with. The live-action version feels like it's aimed at a slightly older audience, which is appropriate given that the audience of the animated film has grown up with it. However, it doesn't lose its core message, which is perfect for whatever new audience the film is aiming to bring in. And now that we're done with most of the sections, we'll have some closing remarks. While many people criticize the idea of making a shot-for-shot remake of the animated film, but live action, in the end, I had a pretty good time. While the film was very similar in shot selection to the animated original, seeing the characters reinterpreted with a new slew of actors was fun to see. Not only that, but seeing Berk in live action felt like rewatching the original for the very first time. The way the dragons were adapted in the live action was really cool as well, and for those wanting more Berk, the film is 30 minutes longer than the animated original, which is to be expected in the transition from animated to live action. One thing I will note is that for purists of the original, upon first viewing, I realized that the live action version does do away with two scenes, one being the scene when Hiccup sneaks Toothless into Berk, and the other being after the test drive sequence, when Hiccup discovers that dragons aren't fireproof on the inside. Director Dean Dubois mentioned that they did it because they felt like it messed with the film's pacing and the information felt redundant, but in my personal opinion, at least for the latter scene, the scene felt like a perfect way to decompress after the adrenaline-filled test drive sequence, and is a good way of teaching Hiccup the information he needs for that final battle, which I can't quite remember where he learned that information in the live-action version. But one of the scenes that they did add that I feel really emphasizes how strong the relationship between Hiccup and Toothless is the scene where Hiccup is honestly in danger of dying from the monstrous nightmare in that cage fight. You can see that Toothless is desperately trying to get out of his little pit that he's stuck in, because without Hiccup, he can't really fly, so you see him trying to climb all of the walls, trying to find a way for him to get to Hiccup, and honestly, I was just like, oh my god, this feels so strong. I love this. As I was watching, I was like, oh my god, this feels so sad. He's like desperate. It's like when your dog is trying to get out of its crate or something, and he knows something is wrong, and so they want to go to their owner to calm them down or something. I don't know, that got me. I have two dogs, and I was just like, oh my god, this is... Toothless is like a dog. But yeah, in the end, I personally think the live action was good, and I think the animated version and live action version are different enough that both can be enjoyed separately.
And to wrap things up, how about a deeper dive into our boy Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III? Don't worry, there are plenty of details here that we haven't already covered in this video. It's the complete Hiccup timeline. The first ever Burkian Viking to befriend and train a dragon, Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III is a legendary figure in the world of how to train your dragon. Son of Stoic the Vast, heir to the chiefdom of Burke, this young man changed the way that people lived with his willingness to see things a different way. Eventually, he took up the role of chief himself. Early life. Hiccup was born prematurely to Stoic the Vast and his wife Valka. Valka worried that he would not survive, but Stoic remained resolute that his son would grow to be strong. Hiccup was given a small axe by his father and a sewed dragon toy by his mother. During a dragon raid, a stormcutter dragon entered their home and curiously played with Hiccup. Valka witnessed this and saw the goodness in dragons, but she startled the creature, causing it to accidentally cut Hiccup's chin with a wing claw. Hiccup cried, alerting his father to the dragon's presence. Stoic and the dragon fought, resulting in the house burning down and Valka being abducted. From here, Stoic was left to raise his son on his own. This experience made Hiccup afraid of dragons, even going so far as to toss his dragon toy away on a fishing trip with his dad. Stoic was overprotective of Hiccup thanks to these events, and Valka remained away from Burke so as to continue to hide her love of dragons. Everyone on the island assumed that she was eaten by a dragon. Hiccup learned from his father that one day he would be chief of the island. He was also told about the Hidden World, a secret place where dragons lived. Stoic promised to find it and end the conflict between dragons and Vikings. One night, Hiccup saw his father weeping by the fire and was invited to sit by him. It was then that he asked if his dad would ever find a new wife, but Stoic said that he didn't want another. This prompted a lesson on love, loss, and life, with there being no greater gift than love. He also learned lessons from his father through board games, like to always think carefully before making big decisions. Later, Hiccup found an injured bird while hiking with his father. Not wanting to mercy kill the animal, Hiccup begged Stoic to help it. The chief did, putting together a makeshift splint and telling Hiccup that the bird was now his responsibility. He had to care for it until it was ready to fly on its own. The young lad was scared of his father's performance at the Snuggletog pageant, as the bearded chief's performance of violence was a little too realistic. As he grew, Hiccup tended to stay smaller and weaker than his peers. His father had him assist Gobber in smithing in the hopes that this would bulk him up. By the time he was 11, Hiccup was ridiculed, causing him to vow revenge. Stoic reminded him that a good chief doesn't seek revenge and instead makes the best decisions for his tribe. Eventually, Stoic felt ashamed of Hiccup, complaining about his flights of fancy and referring to him as a bad Viking. This didn't stop Hiccup from learning from Gobber and inventing his own devices, however. Ending the Dragon War. Using a bola launcher of his own design, dubbed the Mangler, Hiccup snuck off and shot down the deadliest dragon around, the Night Fury. However, Stoic didn't believe him. Hiccup goes to find his kill and discovers that the dragon is still alive. Unable to bring himself to kill the dragon, he frees it, allowing it to pin him and roar before leaving. Hiccup, now enrolled in dragon training by his father, does not fare very well in learning to fight and kill. This earns more mocking from his peers. He's not too keen on killing dragons as he's started to befriend the Night Fury he injured, now named Toothless, based on its retractable teeth. Hiccup makes a prosthetic tail fin to replace the one lost in the dragon's crash landing. With this, Toothless can fly with Hiccup's help. Their friendship provides Hiccup with valuable dragon fighting insight, like how to incapacitate a dragon by scratching a certain spot under their chin. This gives him a leg up in dragon training and earns him the title of Viking Prodigy. Soon, Hiccup's double life is discovered by Astrid Hofferson, who threatens to tell everyone. He convinces her to hold back and takes her on a flight to cool her down. During this ride, they spot the Red Death in the dragon's nest that Burke had been trying to destroy. Once they land, Hiccup asks that Astrid keep this a secret as he is loyal to Toothless. She punches him on the shoulder and kisses him on the cheek. During a training session where he's expected to kill a monstrous nightmare, Hiccup claims that dragons aren't what we think they are and that we don't have to kill them. This is blasphemy to his father, who loses his temper. Hiccup tries to prove he's right by befriending the dragon, but Stoic agitates the creature enough to get it to attack. Toothless hears Hiccup scream and comes to the rescue just in time, revealing himself to the Vikings. Hiccup tries to explain why he's gone against the Viking way of life, but the adults will not listen. Stoic commandeers Toothless to lead him to the dragon's nest. Astrid asks Hiccup about everything, noting his refusal to kill dragons was actually a strength. Hiccup teaches Astrid and the other teens how to ride dragons, and they take all the training dragons kept in the arena to find the adults. They catch up to them and see them fighting a losing battle against the Red Death. Hiccup tries to free Toothless from the chains attached to his father's ship, but the Red Death sinks the vessel. Stoic saves Hiccup and Toothless, and the father-son duo share a moment of mutual respect. Hiccup and Toothless take to the skies to fight the Red Death themselves, and actually manage to kill it with a plasma bolt from Toothless. This causes a chain reaction explosion and knocks Toothless's prosthetic tail off, sending them careening down into the inferno below. Toothless forms a protective shield around Hiccup with his wings, and the two warriors are found by a very grateful Stoic. Hiccup remains unconscious for a week and wakes up to find that he lost his lower left leg in the battle. Thankfully, Gobber puts together a prosthetic for him, one that fits right in with Toothless's control stirrup. Hiccup gets another punch-kiss combo from Astrid, and the islanders finally accept dragons as friends, not foes. Tracking down the Bone Napper, Hiccup convinces his pals to help him track down the dragon that burned down Gobber's house after Gobber struck out on his own to find the beast. On their journey to find the Bone Napper, Gobber tells many stories about his encounters with the dragon, all ridiculous and all ending in an attempt to steal his belt. The other teens don't believe the stories, but Hiccup gives him a chance. Eventually, after crashing onto the Bone Napper's island, even Hiccup grows tired of these tall tales. Of course, that's when the Bone Napper finally shows up. Hiccup spots a hole in the dragon's bone armor and realizes that Gobber's belt buckle is the perfect fit. Gobber reluctantly gives up the buckle, which renders the dragon friendly and also results in a pantsless Gobber. Other Bone Nappers hear the dragon's mating call, drawing more of the species to Berk. Toothless's first Snoggletog. After practicing a new trick together, Hiccup and Toothless run into a swarm of dragons, leaving Berk, knocking Hiccup's helmet off. When the duo returns home, they're assailed by questions from villagers about the dragons, questions Hiccup cannot answer. Folks wonder what they should do for Snoggletog without their dragons, and Hiccup supports Astrid's idea to come up with new traditions. Hiccup feels bad that Toothless can't go with the dragons, as the injured Night Fury can't fly on his own, so he gets to work on a new tail for his pal. While sampling Yak Nog from Astrid, he completes the new prosthetic and pops it on Toothless. The dragon flies off, leaving Hiccup alone and worried that his friend might not return. Hiccup accidentally hitches a ride on Meatlug, who is chained up in a barn. He ends up on an island where all the dragons had gone to lay their eggs. Not finding Toothless, he convinces Hookfang to give him a ride, unexpectedly causing other dragons to start their migration home. With some careful maneuvering and the help of an old ship, they get back to Berk. There, the villagers celebrate, and Toothless returns with Hiccup's lost helmet. The next day, Toothless insists that Hiccup put his old tail on, even after Hiccup puts on the new one. Toothless smashes the new tail, implying that he'd rather have Hiccup help him fly. Freedom and friendship, what a combo. New dragons and the war with the outcasts. Even though dragons are now an integral part of life on Berk, some villagers continue to have trouble with the creatures. Hiccup comes up with a plan to help teach the villagers how to work with the dragons, prompting Stoic to offer up the old arena as a space for a training academy. After this, Hiccup does his best to get Gobber back on his feet after dragon-killing weapons go out of vogue. After a few disastrous incidents, including Gobber trying to make dragon saddles, Hiccup helped Gobber find his calling as a dragon dentist. On another adventure, Hiccup, Astrid, Toothless, and Astrid's dragon get caught in an avalanche, but the dragons are able to make an air pocket which they use to escape. They, along with the other riders, then teach Berk's livestock that the dragons can be protective of them, allowing for a bigger yield of food. Later, Hiccup and Fishlegs find a baby dragon, and Toothless tries to warn them of the danger of its fire-breathing mother, which manifests as apparent jealousy. Mildew, the village curmudgeon, frames all the dragons for things going wrong around the island. Hiccup tries to prove that these issues are not the dragon's fault, but Stoic ends up banishing the creatures to Dragon Island anyways. Whoops. This leaves the village defenseless, allowing their longtime enemies, the outcasts, to attack. Their leader, Alvin the Treacherous, is looking for Dragon Conqueror Hiccup, unaware that Hiccup is Stoic's young son. Hiccup gives himself up and tricks Alvin into bringing him to Dragon Island, where he gets the dragons to help fight off the outcasts. With this, the adults realize how important the dragons are to their safety, welcoming them back into Berk. Hiccup tries to teach Stoic how to fly a dragon in order to prove that doing things the new way can be better than relying on tradition. This results in Stoic using Toothless a whole lot, keeping the dragon too busy for Hiccup. Stoic finds a new rogue dragon and Hiccup helps him train it. Although it's rough, especially as Stoic relies on his old-fashioned mindset, Hiccup is pleased when his father and the new dragon actually bond. Later, a family portrait is commissioned of Stoic and Hiccup, depicting Hiccup as big and buff. This bothers Hiccup, especially as his dad seems pleased with this depiction. To prove himself, Hiccup takes on a bunch of dangerous tasks, almost getting killed multiple times. In the end, Hiccup is able to accept that he is great as he is, learning that another chief's son, who was particularly wealthy and wise, was also lanky. Mildew returns to the spotlight when they plant blue oleander flowers in an attempt to make the dragons sick. Hiccup finds a venom to cure the dragons. When a strange girl washes up on the shore following a shipwreck, Hiccup tries to help her despite Astrid's suspicions. The girl turns out to have ulterior motives, being sent by Alvin to steal the Book of Dragons. Astrid comes up with a plan to get the book back and pretends to be Heather. When they start to fight the outcasts, it's revealed that Heather was being blackmailed by Alvin, and she joins Burke in the fight against Alvin's goons. Hiccup and the teens succeed in retrieving the Book of Dragons. During Thawfest, Hiccup gets a little too braggadocious, as for the first time he'll have the advantage in a competition with the inclusion of dragons. He realizes how extra he's being and takes it down a notch, earning a kiss from Astrid. Soon after, he comes up with the idea to build dragon perches around the village. Lightning storms become more common, and after the villagers build a statue of Thor, they think about shipping Toothless out. Hiccup then realizes that the perches are the things attracting lightning because they're made of metal. When a bunch of holes show up on the island, Toothless starts acting weird. Hiccup finds the source of the holes, a whispering death, a dragon that Toothless insists on fighting alone. After Hiccup almost dies and then comes up with a plan to make Toothless let him help, the duo drive the dangerous dragon off and plug up the remaining holes. Hiccup comes up with a plan to save Fishleg's dragon from the visiting Berserker tribe and stages a dragon attack to scare them off. One day, Snoutlout refuses to listen to Hiccup and flies off on his own. Hiccup chases him down and they're caught in a waterspout, trapping them on Outcast Island. Hiccup is kidnapped by Alvin and Toothless convinces Snoutlout to rescue him. Stoic, Gobber, and Hiccup are looking for Johann's ship after he didn't arrive in time. Apparently there's something that Stoic really wanted on there. Hiccup breaks away from the group to find Johann himself and learns from the shipwrecked trader that the item in question is for Hiccup, from Hiccup's mother. This prompts the young dragon rider to collect his pals and head to Breakneck Bog to find the supposed fog monster. This turns out to be a pack of smoke breath dragons collecting metallic objects for their nest. Hiccup continues on his quest and eventually finds the chest. Inside is the dragon toy he threw away as a young child, which he now cherishes. Fishlegs shows up to combat practice with a glowing dragon egg, so Hiccup takes him back to Dragon Island to return it. Snoutlout steals more eggs with the intent to sell them, so Hiccup and his friends have to scramble to get them all back before the mothers attack the village. While getting ready for a parade, Hiccup feels bad that Toothless is the only dragon of his kind. This leads to some research, and Hiccup finds info on Toothless's species in the Bork papers. He and Toothless head to a special island where they find what appears to be another Night Fury. However, Mildew had defected and joined the Outcasts, and they had planted fake info in the Bork papers to lure Hiccup and Toothless away. Alvin tries to make Hiccup teach them how to train dragons, but the young lad refuses. He and Toothless are imprisoned away from each other. Hiccup manages to enlist the help of Mildew, who helps him escape. Toothless escapes on his own and meets up with Hiccup just as reinforcements from Burke arrive. They fight off the Outcasts and head back to Burke, although Mildew is recaptured. When Hiccup arrives home, he and Toothless lead the Bork Week Parade, the Screaming Death, and the Berserker War. After Hiccup's capture, Stoic implemented a no-flying rule in order to keep the teens safe. Of course, they start up their own secret flight club to defy these orders. Hiccup also designs a new shield to help protect him and Toothless. Even after Stoic catches Astrid and Hiccup flying, they still manage to sneak off and stop an outcast ship from attacking. Stoic, realizing the error he made, allows the teens to fly once more. When Fishlegs feels bad about slowing the squad down, Hiccup doesn't do much to stop him from taking on less responsibility. This results in the overproduction of Gronkle iron and a magnetic mishap involving Meatlug. Hiccup gets stuck to Meatlug and is flown over the sea, where they see another outcast ship. They use the magnetic properties to pull all the metal weapons off the ship and then drop the objects back on it, sinking it. Hiccup apologizes for not letting Fishlegs know how important he was. During survival training without their dragons on Dragon Island, Hiccup runs into the Berserker Dagger, who is hunting dragons. The dragons appear and Dagger attempts to kill Toothless. Hiccup plays along for a while, but eventually admits that they staged the dragon attack from earlier, earning Dagger as an enemy. While investigating a dry well, Hiccup and Fishlegs discover a Titan Wing Whispering Death, known as a Screaming Death, that had been making large tunnels beneath the island. This enormous dragon and its smaller counterparts start tearing the island apart, but the dragon riders manage to drive them off. However, Hiccup knows that this is a temporary fix, as they always return to their birthplace. Snoutlout's dragon, Hook Fang, appears really tired, prompting Hiccup to figure out how to replenish some energy. This leads the group to Fireworm Island, where Snoutlout breaks off a piece of fireworm comb, angering the Fireworm Queen. Instead of eating the piece, Hook Fang throws it back to the fireworms to protect Snoutlout, earning him a sting of venom. This venom actually helps bring his fire back though. Hiccup supports Astrid in her desire to fight the Flightmare, a dangerous, paralyzing dragon who returns every decade. He learns that she had an uncle who fell to the dragon and wanted to redeem her family name. The group takes advantage of the glowing properties of the dragon and a special kind of algae to scare the beast away, hopefully for good. After training up a group of terrible terrors for a competition, the teens have to use their newly trained helpers to save Meatlug from the outsiders. Thinking that their categorical color tagging was causing dragons to all congregate on single islands, the teens find out that the Screaming Death was actually sinking many home islands. Hiccup tries to lure the Screaming Death away from Dragon Island and Burke, while the others figure out that they can get the tagged dragons to help in fighting the threat. They scare the Screaming Death away, but Dragon Island was damaged. Thankfully, Fishlegs and his Grunkle buddies used molten lava to repair the cracks. After a lesson in disarming traps, the twins head off in a huff. Hiccup realizes it's fire season and warns Stoic, who tells him to watch over the twins as they're likely to start a fire. He finds the duo trapped, a spreading fire, and a gigantic Typhoomerang, who just so happens to be a grown-up Torch. He has Torch perform a controlled burn, preventing the spread of fire, and rescues the two twins, who then see Torch off. The riders find a new type of dragon frozen in ice after fighting off some berserkers. Hiccup takes a chunk of the specimen back to study. He and Fishlegs consult the dragon manual and realize that it is a Skrill, and it's still alive. The dragon escapes from the ice, putting everyone in danger. They also learn that at some point in history, the berserkers harness the electric powers of the Skrill. A race to find the dragon kicks off at this discovery, leading to a fight between Burke and the berserkers. The Skrill almost kills the twins, but Hiccup and Toothless intervene, sending everyone flying away. Hiccup goes to find the twins after this and discovers them on the Outcast Island. There he spies on his enemies and finds out that Dagger and Alvin are working together to attack Burke, with Alvin paying Dagger with the Skrill. Hiccup decides that he needs to take the Skrill first, but finds it missing as Dagger took it without asking. Dagger appears to kill Alvin and then attacks Hiccup, who tricks the berserker into getting electrocuted. Hiccup then lures the Skrill back to its icy cave, where it refreezes with the help of the other riders. Snoutlout thinks he's dying and trains a replacement, Gustav. The other riders find it amusing until Gustav hears an order from Stoic to investigate Dagger's latest weapon and goes on his own, getting captured. This leads to Hiccup and Toothless attempting a rescue and getting caught. With directions from Snoutlout, Gustav saves Hiccup and blows up Dagger's weapons. Hiccup makes Gustav an auxiliary. Hiccup, Fishlegs, and the twins find a Scaldrin trapped under a boulder and find it tough to free. Hiccup almost decides to let nature take its course, but the dragon took a liking to Ruff. He helps the twin train the dragon, allowing them to move the rock off its wing. However, the wing was broken, so they had to fashion a makeshift splint. They save the dragon and eventually make it to Changewing Island to meet up with the other riders. Going a little stir-crazy during a winter storm, Hiccup volunteers to take Toothless and search for a missing Johann. He finds him, hears some stories, and takes him back to the village, which is inexplicably empty. Fishlegs falls on him and tells him that a group of speed stingers showed up and everyone took shelter at the cove. When the trio finds everyone at the cove, many villagers, including Stoic, had been stung and paralyzed. Astrid is happy to see that Hiccup is alright and fills him in on the situation. The able riders go and find the speed stingers' leader. They try to catch them in a cage but accidentally break it. In the end, they trap the stingers on the other side of the ice bridge. Hiccup returns Johann to his ship and is rewarded with a jar of ink. During a screaming death drill Hiccup organized, Astrid and Snoutlout start arguing. Their disagreement gets them in trouble with Stoic, who has the riders clear out Mildew's cabbage field. The argument continues until their dragons get involved, so Hiccup has to promise to keep them apart. He continues to struggle with this until it's revealed that a dragon root was somewhere beneath the field, making the dragons act strange. He has Fishlegs and Meatwad move it out. While looking for ingredients to combat eelpox, Toothless bites an eel in half and strikes Hiccup. The dragon runs away, afraid it'll attack its rider again. Fishlegs shows up to help and the two try to catch Toothless, running into trouble in the meanwhile. Toothless eventually regurgitates the eel he ate, returning him to normal. With that, they can return to the village with the cure for eelpox. The berserkers plant a whole bunch of metal for Johann to sell to Burke, attracting a swarm of smothering smoke breaths to the village. Hiccup comes up with a plan to lure them back to Breakneck Bog while also taking out the Berserkers. He has the riders drop the metal on the Berserkers' ships, and so the dragons go and tear all the metal from them. Hiccup then gets Gobber to give up his scrap metal to Johann, who guides the dragons back to the bog. Hiccup invents a new listening device, the Thunder Ear. While Stoic compliments it, they pick up a strange noise. Investigating, they find 3 baby thunder drums stranded out at sea. Thinking nothing of it, they go home. The next day, the dragons are wreaking havoc in Berk, and the only dragon that can get their attention is Tornado. Stoic releases Tornado to protect the babies, and Hiccup is proud of his dad for making the hard choice. After Snoutlout goes against the plan and almost kills Astrid, Hiccup bans him from the academy. He asks his father for advice and learns that being a leader is not easy. Snoutlout is brought back by Alvin, and he shares news of the Screaming Death. As they prepare, Dagger sneaks Dragonroot into the academy and releases the dragons, causing chaos. The riders fight off Dagger, but Stoic is kidnapped, leaving Hiccup as acting chief. Hiccup talks to Alvin and agrees to ally with him in order to help Stoic. The two go to Outcast Island with Toothless, enacting a plan to rescue Stoic and return the island to Alvin. Hiccup is captured by Dagger, but Alvin, Mildew, and some dragons cause enough havoc to let him free. Then the other riders come, leading the Screaming Death. At the end of the battle, Dagger is captured, the Berserkers are driven off, and Berk and the Outcasts forge an alliance. Dragon races. Stoic left the village, leaving the running of the regatta to Hiccup. However, the riders and the rest of the villagers prefer dragon racing, a competition where dragon riders see who can collect the most sheep throughout the village the fastest. Hiccup, conflicted by tradition, decides to let the dragon races take the lead, and even participates himself when his father returns. He and Fishlegs win the competition after Snoutlout and the twins make a fake black sheep, discovering the Dragon Eye and moving away from Berk. Years later, after Berk enjoys peace for a while, Dagger escapes prison and swears revenge on Hiccup. Johann manages to band the Dragon Riders back together, and they discover a huge treasure trove. It's here that Hiccup finds a weird device, but the rest of the Dragon Riders are trapped by Dagger. The ship begins to sink, so Hiccup has to choose between his friends and the device. Of course, he chooses his friends. Once they're freed, Hiccup snags the device and heads back to Berk. Gothy tells him that he needs a Snow Wraith tooth to unlock the device, also known as the Dragon Eye. Hiccup figures out that the Dragon Eye can be activated by any dragon's fire, and is full of information like maps, writing, and never-before-seen dragons. This changes everything. The maps lead the riders away from Berk, so they decide to make an island base. While scouting islands, the other riders get trapped, but Hiccup rescues them with the help of a wild thunder drum and some monstrous nightmare gel. The riders find the perfect island, but must fight and then befriend a new dragon species known as Night Terrors in order to make it work. The group gives Gustav the old runaround one too many times, and he runs off with the Dragon Eye. The riders think he's too immature, which causes him to run away. He's captured by Dagger and tells him how to get the Dragon Eye. He even joins up with the Berserkers. Thankfully, he betrays Dagger and returns the device to Hiccup, and Hiccup discovers new lenses for the Dragon Eye. The twins, apparently the lawful owners of the island, start acting like petty royalty, resulting in everyone being put in the dungeon during a fireworm attack. Everyone agrees that they are equal owners of the island, and the Night Terrors send the fireworms packing. Stoic starts acting weird, so Hiccup enlists him to help with tracking down a Rumblehorn. This particular dragon has been trying to warn everyone of an impending tsunami, and with Stoic's help, they protect the island. Stoic admits to missing Tornado, and the Rumblehorn becomes his new dragon, Skullcrusher. A new dragon, the catastrophic Quaken, arrives and forces the Gronkles out. Snoutlout trains Fishlegs in fighting dirty behind Hiccup's back, and they find out that the Quaken was just lonely. A rogue dragon rider starts attacking ships, so the riders intervene. It turns out to be Heather and her dragon Windshear. Hiccup is suspicious of her aggressive behavior and learns from Johann that her island was attacked and her parents were killed by Dagger. Heather heads off to confront Dagger but is captured. Hiccup then goes to rescue her and convinces her to save revenge for another day. They learn of Dagger's plan to buy new weaponry and launch a surprise attack to stop him. Hiccup stops Heather from killing Dagger and actually finds evidence that she and Dagger are siblings. Heather then leaves with much on her mind. Hiccup develops a wingsuit, and the riders find an injured Speed Stinger. Hiccup nurses it back to health, and they discover that it has developed webbed feet. Snoutlout and Roughnut bring the Stinger back to its pack, which result in a fight between the riders and the Stingers, but Hiccup's new wingsuit, along with the help of the injured Stinger, drive them off. Snoutlout's dragon, Hookfang, mates with a female monstrous nightmare, and he almost stops being a dragon rider. After an attack on Burke by Dagger's armada, Astrid decides to train new dragon riders. Hiccup sees that she wants to fail in order to stay on Burke and protect her family. He also finds Dagger attacking Dragon's Edge, and Astrid and Stoic come as backup, eventually supported by the trainees. All of the new riders are promoted to full riders. Astrid and Stormfly are cruising along during a morning flight when suddenly they stumble upon a sketchy group of dragon hunters on the beach. Stormfly gets kidnapped by Riker Grimborn, leaving Astrid stranded. After Astrid gets herself back together, she and the gang start scouring the beach and checking out a wrecked ship called the Reaper, trying to piece together what happened. They didn't find Stormfly, but they do stumble upon a new lens for the Dragon Eye. Turns out it needs acid from a change-wing to work. They figure out the hunters are headed to a port and they follow them closely. Long story short, things get pretty intense. Riker always seems to be one step ahead, which is very frustrating. Most of the gang gets captured except for Hiccup and Snoutlout, who manage to pull off a daring escape. Meanwhile, they find Heather, who they thought was on their side, but she is actually teamed up with her brother and Riker. Dagger and Heather interrogate Astrid, and they're on the hunt for something called the Dragon's Eye, lost to them ages ago. Riker tries to break them by showing their dragons locked up, but the gang stays strong. Hiccup and Snoutlout are on another adventure on the island of the Screaming Death. They manage to craft some armor suits from the shed scales of the mother dragon, making them invincible to the hunters' attacks. They swoop in, rescue the gang, and now it's game on for round 2. Just when you think things might settle down, Toughnut shows up with a weird bite mark. Gobber thinks it's from a mythical dragon called the Lycan Wing, and Snoutlout totally messes with Toughnut's head, making him think he's gonna turn into a dragon hybrid. Snoutlout has to deliver an axe for a wedding ceremony, but chucks it away in a fit of rage. But it turns out that it landed on the magnetic hide of a new dragon called the Armor Wing. They befriend this dragon and save the day, but the wedding is still a mess. The twins then start a bunch of avalanches, and Hiccup gets stuck in all sorts of tight spots. In the end, it all works out, but Barf and Belch owe Hiccup big time. Astrid learns that the hunters are looking for a snow wraith tooth to supercharge the Dragon Eye. Astrid is then separated from Hiccup during a crazy snowstorm and bumps into Heather, who's camping out nearby. As it turns out, Heather has been playing spy and feeding Astrid intel, but Astrid suggests that they spill the beans to Hiccup, but Heather shuts this down. Astrid leads the gang to this cave where the snow wraith's snoozing away, but Heather's attempts to throw Riker off their trail fail. He finds the cave and demands the Dragon Eye from Hiccup. Heather manages to mess up Riker's plans, and instead he traps them in the cave to flush out some snow wraiths. Hiccup, Fishlegs, and Snoutlout answer Johann's distress call, only to find themselves facing off against wild dragons gone berserk. Fishlegs ends up getting held hostage by the dragons. Back at the edge, Astrid is fortifying defenses with the twins, and things get heated between her and Roughnut. Roughnut then gets nabbed by the hunters, leaving Astrid and Toughnut to defend the island on their own. While Fishlegs bonds with the wild dragons, Hiccup figures out that Johann was lured away to leave the edge vulnerable. Astrid and Toughnut hold their own against the hunters, but it's Toughnut's pranks that save the day. Astrid and Roughnut patch things up, and the gang leads the wild dragons to safety. Then a Skrill wreaks havoc on Outcast Island and Burke, seeking revenge on Hiccup and Toothless. They try to trap it, but end up in hot water themselves. In a risky move, Hiccup decides to bait the Skrill towards Riker and Dagger, but things go south fast. The hunters capture the Skrill, and the gang's in deep trouble. They manage to rescue more dragons, but Riker is on to Heather. When they finally come face to face with the real big boss, Viggo Grimborn, he proposes a sneaky alliance with Heather to take down Riker and Dagger. Things get messy when Viggo sets up a trap using the Flightmare, exposing Heather as a spy. Hiccup tries to use the Flightmare's mist against the hunters, but Viggo's too slick. He snags the Flightmare and Heather, leaving Hiccup wondering just how dangerous their new foe really is. So the gang's back at Dragon's Edge after that disastrous showdown with Viggo, but thanks to Roughnut's quick thinking, they still have their hands on the Dragon Eye, which is a relief. Hiccup's feeling the pressure though. Viggo's proving to be a real brainiac, so Hiccup decides to play it safe for once. He sneaks onto Viggo's ship and finds out that Viggo has set up this crazy strategy game with Heather's life on the line. Hiccup manages to outsmart Viggo and saves Heather and the Flightmare, with a little unexpected help from Dagger, but just when they think they're in the clear, Viggo pulls a fast one and snatches the Dragon Eye right out from under their noses. A few months later, Hiccup is still determined to get the Dragon Eye back, but his determination lands him and Toothless in a tight spot on this island full of hunters. Toothless gets hit with some dragon root and can't move, but luckily Dagger shows up out of nowhere to help them out. Turns out, Dagger claims he's changed his ways since leaving the Hunters. Hiccup's not too sure about trusting him, but they end up working together to save Toothless. Things get dicey when they're captured, but Dagger comes back swinging, riding Toothless to the rescue. Talk about a roller coaster of emotions. Meanwhile, Snoutlout and Hookfang get recruited by the Fireworm Queen to deal with this pesky cavern crasher. Snoutlout's all gung-ho about repaying the favor to the Queen, so he goes solo on this mission, but when things get hairy, the gang comes together to save the day, and Snoutlout gets a monument-worthy reward. Fishlegs is left in charge while Hiccup's away, but the twins and Snoutlout couldn't care less about his authority. They end up causing chaos, leaving Fishlegs feeling pretty down. But then he stumbles upon this colony of albino night terrors and gains their respect by helping them out. Spitelout also goes missing, as he's been setting up a storehouse on another island and dealing with some pesky Singetails. Stoic gets involved, but their bickering only makes things worse. Eventually they see eye to eye and sort it all out, but not before some dragon drama unfolds. Astrid stumbles upon a drifting ship and ends up catching a deadly plague called the Scourge of Odin. The only cure is rare, saliva from a Buffalord, a dragon that's been extinct for ages. With some help from the Dragon Eye, they track down a living Buffalord, but it isn't coming easy. To make matters worse, Viggo shows up, revealing he infected his own crew to get his hands on the cure. It's a tense standoff, but ultimately the Buffalord fights back and Astrid gets cured. The gang feels pretty burnt out from staying on the defensive all the time, so they convince Hiccup to let them kick back on a deserted island. However, their dragons start acting wonky and everyone blames Hiccup's work obsession, but actually there are some parasitic dragons causing the chaos. After some trial and error with saltwater, they get things back to normal and agree to chill out at home for a bit. Then Hiccup and Toothless stumble into a hunter trap and end up in a crazy arena where dragons battle it out. Hiccup's on a mission to free the imprisoned dragons while Toothless faces off against the arena champ, the Triple Strike. The gang comes to the rescue and they manage to bust out the dragons and take down the hunters. Now the Triple Strike is known as Sleuther and wants to be their friend. They also discover a marble mining operation run by hunters using enslaved catastrophic Quakens. Fishlegs really wants to save them, but Hiccup is worried that it might be too late. Astrid, Heather, and Snoutlout discover the hunters are building a fortress to keep the dragons locked up in, so they race against time to free the enslaved Quakens and stop the hunters. Dagger then shows up asking for help finding Heather. Despite their doubts, Hiccup and the gang agree to help, but things take a dark turn when Dagger sacrifices himself to save them from the hunter's trap. Heather's left mourning her brother, and the gang is left reeling from the loss. So they hatch a plan to infiltrate a dragon auction run by Viggo, aiming to rescue the captive dragons and put a dent in his evil business. Snoutlout and Gobber go undercover with some borrowed gold from Burke, while the rest of the crew sneaks in with Johann's help. Things go south quickly though, and they end up locked up while their dragons are put up for auction. It's tense, but with a little help from a hot burple named Grump, they manage to break free and send the hunters packing. Viggo does get away with Burke's gold, but the dragons are safe. As they continue to mess with Viggo's plans, Viggo offers Hiccup a truce to divide up the archipelago and avoid further conflict. But Hiccup smells something fishy and leads the gang to investigate a nearby island. They end up captured by this tribe called Defenders of the Wing, who mistake them for hunters. After some intense negotiations, Hiccup earns their trust and learns that Viggo's been using them as a distraction. Eruptodon, a lava-eating dragon, gets captured, but with the help of Queen Mala and her tribe, they manage to save the day. Viggo then puts a bounty on Hiccup's head, leading to a wild chase with everyone from dim-witted brothers to Savage himself trying to cash in. After a dramatic showdown, Hiccup escapes and the hunters are defeated, but not before Hiccup and Stoic realize that they need to lean on each other more. Just when they think they can catch a break, Dagger shows up, supposedly working with hunters. As it turns out, he's been undercover to save his dragon Shattermaster. With Hiccup and Heather's help, they manage to rescue Shattermaster and the other captured Gronkles. Viggo captures the Submaripper, a fearsome tidal-class dragon, and wreaks havoc on Burke. Hiccup dives deep underwater to free the Submaripper, facing off against the hunters in a thrilling showdown. Then the Midnight Sun wreaks havoc on Burke, with everyone showing some seriously wacky symptoms of sleep deprivation. Astrid is deliriously happy, Heather can't seem to coordinate, Fishlegs is paranoid, Snoutlout's mood swings are all over the place, and the twins are seeing things that aren't there. Thankfully, the sun finally sets. Hiccup is itching for revenge against Viggo for his sneaky attack on Burke, and he's caught up with dealing with a pack of new dragons called the Shadow Wings. With Toothless's help, he devises a plan to trap them one by one, teaching him the importance of teamwork and strategy. Finally, they all crash out for a much-needed nap in the darkened basement of Dragon's Edge. Soon, the defenders of the wing reach out for help delivering an Eruptodon egg to its nesting site inside of a volcano. Hiccup and Fishlegs face some serious hurdles, but they manage to work together and get the job done, even when a pack of fire terrors causes chaos. In the end, they trust the fire terrors to take care of the egg and it hatches safely. Then, a lightning storm hits Dragon's Edge, and Astrid ends up blinded while trying to rescue the dragons. Despite her fears that she may never see again, she manages to overcome them and trains the aggressive Triple Strike, regaining her sight in the end. After months of planning, Hiccup is ready to take down Viggo and reclaim the Dragonite, but things take a twist when Viggo reveals that Riker has taken over the Hunters and offers an alliance to stop him. Just when Hiccup's feeling overwhelmed, Viggo returns and offers the Dragonite as a sign of trust, leaving Hiccup torn between his feelings for Astrid and the growing danger around them. Despite getting the Dragonite back, Hiccup and the gang are still wary of Viggo and lock him up. But when Riker and the Hunters come knocking with the Shellfire, a giant dragon, they're in for a wild ride. With the volcano on the edge about to blow, Hiccup and Viggo team up to take down Riker using the Submaripper, the Shellfire's natural enemy. It's a tense showdown, but in the end, Riker meets his fiery demise and Viggo turns on Hiccup, leading to a heart-stopping moment where Hiccup sacrifices the Dragonite to save Astrid, and Viggo falls into the volcano. Then Dragon's Edge starts erupting, and the riders are forced to put their return to Berk on hold to deal with the ongoing threat from the Hunters. With the help of the dragons of the Dark Deep, they manage to stabilize the volcano, but it's clear that the Hunters are not done causing trouble. While Astrid grapples with choosing a betrothal gift for Hiccup, they get word of traders disappearing in the northern markets. Turns out it's all linked to a mysterious dragon known as the Sandbuster, leading to a high-stakes adventure to recover stolen treasures and survive the dragon's wrath. Just when things seem settled, they stumble upon Viggo's sword, hinting at more trouble ahead. Meanwhile, the Defender's Eruptodon passes its legacy to its child and heads to Vanaheim, a mythical dragon resting place. The twins, ever the troublemakers, follow the Eruptodon, leaving the riders stranded until Hiccup's clever thinking and a little help from the dragons help them escape. And let's not forget about Fishlegs getting roped into playing his alter ego, Thor Bonecrusher, to rescue Alvin. Things go sideways when Thor takes charge of the bandits, but luckily Hiccup and the riders swoop in to save the day. Hiccup and Astrid head out on a supply run, but Dragon's Edge is attacked by Singetails ridden by the Hunters, led by Krogan and his Titan Wing Singetail. Even with Hiccup and Astrid's return, the odds are against them, and they're forced to abandon the Edge and seek refuge with the Defenders of the Wing. There, Hiccup starts building a new Dragoneye to regain the others' trust, while Viggo is still on the hunt for the original Dragoneye. The Dragonflyers attack the Defenders of the Wing, leading Hiccup and the riders on a chase through the archipelago. They return to Berk to prepare for war, but Hiccup refuses to harm the Singetails, leading to tensions with his father and Astrid. Hiccup heads to Storehouse Island to learn more about Singetails and gets pinned down by one, only to be rescued by Spitelout, who helps him discover weaknesses in the Singetails' behavior. The battle for Dragon's Edge continues, with the riders reclaiming it but discovering that Viggo is still alive and has recovered the Dragoneye. However, Hiccup is ready with his new Dragoneye nearing completion, setting the stage for an intense showdown. Meanwhile, Dagger seeks Hiccup's help in deciphering Oswald's diary, leading them back to Vanaheim, while the other riders deal with their own challenges and revelations, including Johann's betrayal and the true mastermind behind the Hunters. Johann's betrayal is revealed, putting the riders in a dangerous position. Despite his attempts to deceive them, Johann's plan is foiled by the twins, leading to a dramatic confrontation where Hiccup outwits Johann and completes his own Dragoneye. The race to recover the remaining lenses intensifies as the riders realize the stakes of finding the King of Dragons. Back on Berk, tensions rise as Stoic grapples with the fallout of Johann's betrayal and the vulnerability of their island. His distrust leads to drastic actions, but ultimately it is his collaboration with Hiccup that saves Berk from Krogan's invasion, showcasing the power of unity in the face of adversity. Meanwhile, unexpected alliances form as Dagger and Mala find common ground and develop a mutual attraction. The Wing Maidens face their own challenges, but ultimately find strength and inspiration in each other, highlighting the importance of resilience and determination. As relationships evolve and tensions run high, Astrid grapples with her own insecurities about her relationship with Hiccup, leading to moments of introspection and reconciliation between the two. Amidst the chaos, the riders witness the heartwarming ceremony where baby Razor Whips choose their Wing Maidens, serving as a reminder of the bonds of friendship and trust that unite them all. Johann's treachery reaches its peak, leading to a daring rescue mission and a final showdown on Berserker Island. Hiccup and his team face numerous challenges, including rescuing the captured Titan Wing Dramillion and uncovering the true King of Dragons, a bewilderbeast on Berserker Island. As the conflict escalates, Johan's plans are thwarted, and Hiccup's team emerges victorious with the help of Queen Mala and the Wing Maidens. However, the discovery of Drago Bloodfist's involvement adds a new layer of danger to the situation, as he seeks to acquire a new Bewilderbeast for his own nefarious purposes. In the midst of the chaos, relationships evolve and alliances are forged, culminating in the marriage of Mala and Dagger, and Fishlegs and Snoutlout start to court Roughnut. Stoic's recovery brings hope to Burke, while the decision to destroy both Dragon Eyes reflects Hiccup's commitment to preventing further misuse of their power. Ultimately, the riders emerge triumphant, defeating the hunters and safeguarding the egg of the Bewilderbeast. With the threat temporarily averted, the riders return to Burke, ready to face whatever challenges the future may hold, united in their bond and dedication to protecting dragons and their home. Reunited with his mother. 5 years after originally training Toothless, Hiccup has fully integrated dragon riding into the culture of Burke. With this accomplished, Hiccup and Toothless explore the world looking for uncharted territory and also to avoid Stoic. Stoic believes that Hiccup is ready to succeed him as chief of Burke, which feels like too much to Hiccup. While exploring, Astrid and Stormfly catch up to Hiccup and they meet Aerith. He lets them know about other dragon riders and the fact that Drago Bloodfist is currently putting together an army to take over the world. Hiccup and Astrid return to Burke to warn everyone, and Stoic orders the island to fortify the village against this madman. Hiccup wants to find a way to do this without war and heads off to find and speak with Drago, hopefully to change his mind. Stoic wants Hiccup to stay behind as Drago cannot be reasoned with, but Hiccup heads off on his own anyway. Above the clouds, he lets loose a furious scream, and Toothless gets a little worried. A new figure appears, a rogue dragon rider who turns out to be his long-lost mother Valka. She explains to Hiccup that 20 years ago, a dragon broke into their home and played with Hiccup, a gentle and intelligent creature whose soul reflected her own. She goes on to explain what happened when Hiccup was an infant and why she had to leave. From there, the two bond along with their dragons. However, Valka does not want to reason with Drago either, so Hiccup goes to do it by himself once more. As the battle reaches its climax, the sanctuary is suddenly discovered by Stoic and Gobber, leading to a heartwarming reunion between Stoic and his beloved wife. Hiccup is overjoyed to see his parents reunited as their family bond strengthened once more. However, their happiness is short-lived as Drago launches a final, devastating attack on the sanctuary, catching them off guard. The Bewilderbeasts engage in a fierce battle to determine the true alpha of all dragons, with Drago's Bewilderbeast emerging victorious. In a desperate attempt to reason with Drago and prevent further bloodshed, Hiccup confronts him, but Drago remains steadfast in his ruthless control of power. Tragically, the conflict takes a devastating turn when Toothless, under the control of Drago's Bewilderbeast, unleashes a fatal blast aimed at Hiccup. Stoic heroically intervenes, pushing Hiccup out of harm's way and taking the full force of the blast himself. The loss of his father leaves Hiccup grief-stricken and filled with a sense of profound loss. Despite his anguish, Hiccup finds himself torn as Toothless, released from the Bewilderbeast's control, approaches him. Fearing for his dragon's safety and struggling to come to terms with his father's death, Hiccup is forced to make a heart-wrenching decision, urging Toothless to leave him behind for his own safety. At a funeral for Stoic, Hiccup says his last wishes to his father. Burke is frozen and hope seems lost, but Hiccup is inspired by his mother and decides to go avenge his father and get his friend back. He flies back to Burke on baby dragons and confronts Drago. He disenchants Toothless by saying he knows the dragon would never hurt him or Stoic willingly. This works, and Hiccup and Toothless fend off Drago and his Bewilderbeast. They think it's over, but the Bewilderbeast manages to let loose another blast of ice. However, they survive, Toothless now glowing with plasma. He uses the plasma blast to free the other dragons who join in the fight against Drago. One last plasma blast destroys the Bewilderbeast's horn, sending it and Drago into retreat. Toothless becomes the new alpha, and Hiccup is crowned chief of Burke by Gothi. He builds a statue in his father's honor and shares a romantic moment with Astrid, helping the people of Nepenthe. Hiccup's leadership and courage are once again put to the test as he navigates through challenging situations on Nepenthe Island. Despite initial reluctance, Hiccup agrees to go help Calder and the people of Nepenthe in investigating a mysterious tremor shaking the island. As they journey, Hiccup is struck by the reverence shown to Toothless by Thunderdrums and Scaldrons, a testament to Toothless's role as the alpha dragon. However, Hiccup remains focused on the task at hand, as others are distracted by the island's hot pools. They then discover that Calder has drugged their food in an attempt to reveal his transformation into a dragon. Hiccup and his riders find themselves imprisoned. Yet, resourceful and determined, they manage to free themselves and confront Calder. Through quick thinking and understanding of dragon behavior, Hiccup identifies the source of the tremors as the awakened Forever Wings, ancient dragons dormant within the island. Despite the chaos and anger, Hiccup ensures the safety of both the people and the dragons, preventing a catastrophic outcome. In a final confrontation with Calder, Hiccup demonstrates his strategic prowess and ultimately emerges victorious, albeit with a heavy heart for the loss of life. His commitment to peace and reconciliation is evident as he extends a gesture of goodwill to Mick and the people of Nepenthe before returning to Berk. Back home, Hiccup continues to lead by example, assigning tasks for the rebuilding efforts and honoring his father's memory with a monument. Through his actions, Hiccup reaffirms his role as a compassionate and capable leader, dedicated to both protecting humans and dragons. At some point, Hiccup had to fight against a mystery-class dragon known as a Silk Spanner, finding the hidden world and a new Night Fury. In the aftermath of the events, Hiccup, now the chieftain of New Berk, faces the challenge of managing the overpopulation of dragons on the island. Determined to find a safe haven for dragons, he sets out on a quest to locate the Hidden World, a legendary sanctuary for dragons mentioned by his late father Stoic. Meanwhile, Toothless encounters a white female dragon known as the Light Fury, who is being held captive by warlords and is later given to the notorious dragon hunter Grimmel the Grizzly. Toothless becomes enchanted by the Light Fury and the two form a connection. As Grimmel threatens Berk and its inhabitants, Hiccup prepares for a confrontation, rallying the citizens and dragons to leave Berk in search of the Hidden World. Along the way, they discover a new island which they name New Berk and begin to settle there. Realizing that Toothless's inability to fly solo is hindering his relationship with the Night Fury, Hiccup builds an automatic tail fin for Toothless. When Toothless flies off with the Light Fury to an unknown land, Hiccup, Astrid, and the other dragon riders embark on a scouting patrol and stumble upon the Hidden World. However, their presence here puts them in danger, and Toothless ultimately rescues them and returns them to New Berk. Their newfound sanctuary is short-lived as Grimmel follows them and captures Toothless and the Light Fury. With Astrid's encouragement, Hiccup sets out to stop Grimmel and his army, ultimately leading to a climactic battle. In a daring move, Hiccup frees Toothless and the Light Fury, but Toothless is tranquilized mid-air. In a moment of sacrifice, Hiccup frees the Light Fury and implores her to save Toothless, leading to Grimmel's demise. In the end, Hiccup realizes that dragons and humans cannot coexist peacefully, and bids farewell to Toothless as the dragons are set free to live in the Hidden World. Hiccup and Astrid marry and become the chieftains of New Berk, marking a new chapter for both humans and dragons alike. Remembering dragons at Snoggletog. As Hiccup reflects on the past Snoggletog traditions and the absence of Toothless, he faces the realization that the younger generation of New Berk is fearful of dragons. This prompts him and Astrid to organize a Snoggletog pageant aimed at celebrating their friendship with dragons and educating the village children about their shared history. However, Hiccup struggles when Gobber's script for the pageant portrays a skewed version of events, with Stoic as the hero and Hiccup portrayed as weak. Despite his reservations, Hiccup reluctantly agrees to proceed with the play, hoping to still convey the message of friendship with dragons. During the performance, a fire breaks out on stage, leading to chaos and danger. Hiccup, wearing a mechanical Toothless puppet suit, finds himself in a precarious situation. However, Toothless, who had been watching from afar with his dragon family, swoops in to rescue him, playing the role of himself in the smoke-filled confusion. After the incident, Hiccup remains unaware that Toothless had come to his rescue as he continues to grapple with the misunderstanding between him and his daughter Zephyr about Toothless's absence. The family's Snoggletog celebration takes an unexpected turn when they discover a mysterious glowing stone left behind by Toothless as a parting gift. As Toothless departs from New Berk with his family, Hiccup is left to reflect on the bittersweet nature of their bond and the passage of time, while also cherishing the memories of their adventures together. Anyone else get a little teary-eyed when thinking about how far our boy has come? What a tale, what a tale! And with that, we've come to the end of our HTTYD compilation. Hopefully you've learned something new about this incredible series. If we've missed any important details, or if there are any other characters you'd like us to take a closer look at, be sure to tell us in the comments. Also, make sure to like the video if you liked it, and subscribe for more. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, Frederator loves you.